Good evening. I will now call the regular Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, October 15, 2024 to order, and I will ask the clerk to call roll.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Chair Rudine.
Here.
Vice Chair Lightfoot.
Here.
Commissioner Klein.
Here.
Commissioner Vargas.
Here.
Banta.
Here.
Commissioner Beaumont.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Nancy. Okay, everybody, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will ask Commissioner Vargas to please lead us in the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move on with regular business, starting with communications. At this time, I will ask Director Morris if there is any communications or announcements for this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Chair Radine. We have received communications for both of the public hearing items. Those have been transmitted to the Planning Commission as we've received them, and staff will highlight them during their presentation. No other communications.
Great, thank you. We will move on to approval of this evening's agenda. Do I have a motion and then a second to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Got a motion by Chair Klein, or excuse me, Commissioner Klein, and a second by Commissioner Beaumont. Nancy, can you please call a roll call vote?
Commissioner Klein.
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Banta. Yes. Commissioner Beaumont. Yes. Vice Chair Lightfoot.
Yes.
Chair Rudine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item is business from the floor. This portion of the agenda is available to the public for the public to address the Planning Commission on any issue that is not on the agenda. There will be a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. I welcome anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding a topic or issue that is not on tonight's agenda to please approach the podium. Okay. I will close business from the floor. Moving on to the consent calendar, we have one item on the consent calendar, which are the minutes from the August 20th, 2024 meeting. Does anyone from the commission or the public wish to pull the consent item for discussion? No? So do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
I got a motion from Commissioner Klein, a second from Commissioner Vargas. Nancy, can you please call a roll call vote?
Klein.
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes.
Commissioner Banta. Commissioner Beaumont. Vice Chair Lightfoot.
Yes.
Chair Rudine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. Now we will move on to our public hearing this evening, which is to receive a presentation on the Centennial Park Master Plan. We will first hear a presentation by staff, followed by commissioner questions, Then we will open it up for public comment. May we please have staff's presentation?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Albert Enold. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department, and I'm here to make this presentation for you. This is Centennial Park Master Plan, and specifically, staff is requesting to adopt an initial study mitigated negative declaration and approve a major design review request for the Centennial Park Master Plan located at 501 Browns Valley Road. And to your right on the screen is an image that shows the extent of the project site. You'll notice Browns Valley residential development area to the west, the industrial park, as well as Nuttray Airport, and the Puda Canal located to the east. North is industrial park, and then south is Browns Valley Road, or Browns Valley Parkway, excuse me. A little bit of background to get us started on this item. Really, the context for this project starts back in 1978 and 1983 when a couple of environmental impact reports were prepared. One was for the Browns Valley area, which is currently developed with residential development right now. The other one was for the I-505, I-80 redevelopment area, which you'll see that there's a lot of industrial development out in those areas. And those were the catalyst environmental documents that led to a lot of the review and approval for projects out in that area. But it also included the project site. In 1991, the city approved the community park. It was a 40-acre design at that point in time, and that's where you'll see a lot of the development that's occurred over in Centennial Park. Another notable sequence in this project occurred in 2013 when the Parks and Recreation conducted a recreation needs assessment for the entire city, which informed the preparation and update, among other components within the general plan update, and also included updates to the Parks and Recreation element. Another sequence that occurred directly after the general plan update, which is usual, is a citywide Parks and Recreation Master Plan creation and adoption. It identifies the plans for how to develop parks throughout the entire city, and then subsequent master plans are developed for individual areas for improvement. Another component that's important to the conversation for tonight is in 2023 when the Parks and Recreation Commission adopted the Centennial Park Master Plan, but also around that same time, City Council authorized a memorandum of understanding with Landify Corporation, which will lead into the discussion of how this project came to be. But that main sequence point in 2023 is when Parks and Recreation took that sequential step after adoption of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan to adopt a master plan for this particular park in general. And they're the ones that set the criteria and the type of programming that is supposed to occur for those master plans. Most recently, in 2024, this year, October 8th, City Council approved a contract with Landify Corporation. So the project site that was previously identified, currently we would like to provide some context because our review occurs with consistency with the general plan as well as the zoning ordinance. The current general plan designation is identified as Parks and Recreation, and the zoning is PR, that is the zoning district for it. There are some existing conditions to note about the site. As we noted, it's currently developed as a community park. There's approximately 53 acres that have been developed. The entire site itself is 276 acres. There are some notable features about the site. There are 4 creeks. There's a Horse Creek tributaries, which is the south, middle, and north. Then there's also Pine Tree Creek that's located more south towards Browns Valley Parkway. The site is generally flat, around 116 feet to 148 feet variation in elevation. And then I noted earlier what the project boundaries are bound by, mostly residential along the western side, and then along the eastern side, the Puda South Canal, which is a Solano Irrigation District item. And so something that we thought would be helpful for the Planning Commission is a tour of the project site. Now, I will note that as you're viewing this, we tried to speed up as we're rounding around the sides of it. What you're viewing right now is imagery of what that existing project site looks like with the ball fields, the tennis courts, and the soccer field primarily. But you'll see that south fork of the Horse Creek tributary right there that has been enhanced since the development of the community park. There is the middle fork of a Horse Creek, and there's a large open area called the Great Meadows, that part right there that you'll see between the middle and the northern fork right there. You'll see Also off to the right-hand side of the screen, all of that residential development. Northern entrance to the park area, you'll see that's just a unimproved road, industrial development. And then this large plot of land that you're seeing right here to the left of the screen is one of the phases, the first phase of what this project is going to be described as, that Puda South Canal off to the left-hand side. Now, these next shots that were done by our team, Mr. Corey Booth from our media team, is just showing what it looks like as if you were flying over. Again, just trying to provide context as to the scale of the project site, as well as how much has already been developed on the site. And then we're trying to provide that context, understanding of what's already been developed out there. And really what we wanted to try and tell the story of is that as the city has undertaken this development of the community park, that there has been a lot of enhancements to the creekways. If you were to look at previous aerial imagery that has occurred before the city took on the responsibility of this park, a lot has occurred to refurbish those tributary areas that have really turned out to be a great habitat for wildlife. So here is the project. It is a park master plan, and our job is to conduct the environmental review and to process the major design review request that is required by our Vacaville Municipal Code. And the project summary is identified into 5 phases. Phase 1 includes a bike park, Great Meadows, dog park. I promise there's going to be a map that goes along with this that provides that context. Phase 2 is the recreation center. That's the plan, the 75,000 square feet with some parking expansion. Phase 3 is a soccer field expansion, ball field renovations, as well as some detention basins that are needed. 4 is a skate park, RC car track, creek, lots of creek restoration. And then phase 5 involves a pavilion, volleyball courts, and then a pollinator garden. Phase 1 is the one that is more definitive at this time of being able to be achievable with that Landify Corporation. That would be expected to be 3 to 6 years to complete the importing of 2.3 million cubic yards of clean soil. And so this is the project that has been identified as part of this land use entitlement that was presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission. You'll see in phase 1 being the larger area of the project, the northern portion, which is to the right of the screen, that shows that bike park area. The middle section, which is that Great Meadows area, is really intended to protect the creek areas and then also to enhance that current wildlife area with additional trails and walkability. And then you'll see phase 2 in blue that involves that recreation center. 3 that has that basin towards the bottom of the screen with that parking lot area. And then 4 and 5 also are components that are planned for this development. So our job is to determine whether or not this master plan is compliant with the general plan as well as our zoning ordinance. So we received the application from our colleagues over in the Park and Recreation Department and proceeded on that route. And what we found was that the project would be consistent with the general plan. And there were a number of examples that are defined in greater detail in the findings for approval. Mainly, it's consistent with the general plan land use element. It's identified as a public park. Yes, it is that simple, as we check to make sure that is the land being used for what it was intended for when City Council approved that a land use exhibit. But it's also going to be consistent with the Parks and Recreation element, which is an element of the general plan for a number of reasons. It was identified as an existing and also planned expansion of the community park when City Council adopted the general plan in 2015. Also provides for high-quality public park systems with a variety of recreational opportunities, and it would also preserve and enhance those natural areas within the park, including the creekways. For compliance with the zoning ordinance, how we're hitting this is that we're pursuing down that path of making sure that the city is complying with its own municipal code by obtaining a major design review. And so what we look for in that aspect is whether or not all the proposed uses that are being considered as part of this master plan are allowed within that PR zoning district. And what we found, all the recreational uses, habitat restoration, gardens, recreational facilities, all those are considered permitted by right. So we're not introducing a type of land use that wouldn't be allowed. With regards to development standards, the things that we could identify at this time, such as floor area ratio, setbacks, and other requirements, they would be able to comply. And many of these larger recreational amenities that have the tendency to create noise would be substantially set back away from a lot of those residential uses that are located in Browns Valley area. There's other performance standards that are located within our municipal code that would be ongoing compliance as the project gets developed, such as noise, lighting requirements would be checked in greater detail with plans that are produced later on down the road through consultants to make sure there isn't any light pollution that's occurring with those sensitive land uses that are the residential uses to the west. And then also construction is going to be a big deal with the deposit of soil that's necessary in order to be able to make that first phase of development work, is making sure that as soil is being deposited at the site that we're taking into consideration watering, dust control management practices, best management practices for making sure that we're not impacting through wind, soil deposits at that site. So there's a couple of different things that we've looked at as part of this that are going to be required through the environmental document, which we'll get to. The last thing that we worked with our colleagues on was whether or not there was going to be enough existing infrastructure to be able to serve this project. And what we found is that those existing utilities will be able to be served. They're mainly coming from Allison Parkway to the north, as well as those existing freeway, the roadway right-of-ways that are located within Browns Valley Parkway. The other leg of our responsibility is to make sure that whatever this project is complying with environmental quality, the California Environmental Quality Act. And the main idea behind that is that projects are going to produce a particular impact on the environment, and you need to be able to identify those impacts and disclose them to the public and give the public an opportunity to comment on those. And so we did proceed that way. The city worked with Helix Environmental Consulting, who is also here tonight, on the preparation of a mitigated negative declaration. That's the initial study that evaluates and then declares that there are potential impacts that are going to be created, but they can be mitigated to a less than significant level. We circulated that document for 30 days from August 30th to September 30th. And the main disclosure about that was that many of the mitigation measures that were being proposed would help reduce those impacts. We're talking about grading, we're talking about geotechnical impacts associated with that soil deposit and things like that. During that public comment period, we received comments from 7 agencies and 5 residents, included in your packet. Are the responses to those comments. Largely, we found that it wouldn't require any changes to those mitigation measures, that all the mitigation measures that are either identified in our original general plan 2015 that was adopted, that environmental impact report, as well as the new mitigation measures were sufficient to mitigate all of those impacts. And so we provided those responses for the commission as part of that. But really, we didn't find that any of the comments introduced any new impacts that would require recirculation of this environmental document. And the main idea that we wanted to come across as part of this environmental project is that as good stewards of Centennial Park, you'll notice that a lot of the environment that's been out there has been enhanced over time through the planting of trees, through the restoration of creekways. And so this particular project would further provide those enhancements for trying to further enhance the wildlife area. The project did public outreach. Preceding this application of the major design review, there was a long period which our colleague from Park and Recreation, Mr. Hugh Hesterman, at the discretion of the chair or the commission, can elongate the explanation of what that multiple community meetings looked like. But it was from 2013 to 2023 that led to the eventual culmination of the adoption of the Centennial Parks Master Plan adoption with the Parks and Recreation Commission. But for this particular project, our obligation was to make sure that the public was informed about the environmental document. And so we did that with the publication of a notice of intent, which was sent out to all property owners within a 1,000-foot radius of the boundaries. That was also published in the newspaper and online, and that was done on August 30th. We also did the same thing for this public hearing tonight by sending out a mailer to all those residents on October 3rd. It was also published in the newspaper, and it was installed on site to make sure that people were aware in high traffic areas over at the park. From that, we received 3 comments. Mainly the concerns associated with that was people were concerned about developing over that existing habitat that's within that area. We did receive one very cool comment that was from a high school student, junior, over at a local high school, and they were really mainly concerned about making sure that the master plan had adequate volleyball facilities. And so we were able to respond to that public comment, but that's also included in the correspondence for this commission tonight. So in conclusion of our presentation, we wanted to make sure that the commission understands that staff does support this request for the major design review and the environmental analysis. It does meet the required findings that are listed within our municipal code. It complies with the general plan, zoning, and state law, and it complies with development standards. We have a recommendation on the screen for the adoption of the resolution for tonight. That concludes my presentation for tonight. We have our parks planner, Mr. Hugh Hesterman, as well as environmental consultant, and the Landify Corporation that's been along for the ride through this entire process. Should the commission have any questions?
Great, thank you. Hugh, did you want to do your presentation now, or should I do commissioner questions?
I would recommend that the commission ask any clarifying questions.
Got it. Okay, do we have, yes. So now it's time for commissioner questions. We have Commissioner Beaumont.
Appreciate the review. Quick question or two. I know it's this is all based on funding that you can find. Can you tell me about where that funding is going to be over this 20-year period?
That'd be a great question for Mr. Hugh Hesterman.
Well, good evening. Yeah, that is a very good question and it's asked by many. The first phase one, that's those areas that were in pink in the phasing plan. We believe that our relationship with Landify Corporation will help fund the construction of all those. Beyond that, we don't have any identified funding. But keep in mind that the city has a standard ratio of providing 1.7 acres of community park per 1,000 residents. So as the city continues to grow, we will be collecting more park impact fees with each home. And those fees will be allocated to different areas as we see the need is most urgent. So the phase two would be dependent on other sources beyond what we can do with Landify.
So is phase one already funded?
So phase one, the first section of phase one, the bike park, we have a signed contract with Landify to construct that. We anticipate that moving in, and if assuming both parties continue to be satisfied, we will fund the second and third areas in the same way.
Okay, and my other question is about the soil. He's talking about 2.4 million cubic yards, whatever it is, through 2033. And is that within 50 miles of the project? Did I read that somewhere?
Well, yes. So we anticipate that most of it can be had within 50 miles. It really depends on where the soil is available. And that is a hard thing to project. But obviously, there's a savings. The shorter distance you have to haul, there's a savings in the trucking costs.
So how do we know that soil is pure and not hazardous?
Yes, very good question. We have a very thorough process that Landify has been using successfully in Europe for the last 50 years or so that checks the material at the site before it's ever loaded in the truck. Once material is identified as being suitable, it's checked, it's analyzed, verified, it's identified, it's provided a QR code to that particular truck, and then it's traced all the way to our deposit site at Centennial, where their staff again verifies that it is what they say it is. It's checked again there. If it does not meet the city standards for that, it's rejected and sent away. So that's really an important part. And then also there's a traceability plan for where those areas are actually placed on the site.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Vargas.
Just a quick question off the presentation. Thank you very much, Albert. In the slide deck, it said that the existing city utilities will serve the project. That's all phases, the entire project. Second question is, what happens during the course of construction you find that that's not the case? What would be the backup plan?
So the answer is yes to the first question. And then the second question is that the city on ongoing conducts master utility studies for the entire city. So a lot of these things are based off of that, is that you have a master utility study that identifies how improvements are going to be done across the entire city, anticipates potential growth in other areas. So our team over the utility departments does look at these potential improvements, effects of irrigating these areas, as well as providing for, that 75,000 square foot building. And so they were able to take a look at it for this particular project and confirm that. But on an ongoing basis, we have those master studies.
Thank you.
Commissioner Banta.
Hi. My questions were about the funding and then also like the ongoing maintenance. So once this park is built, even just phase one, who takes on the load of the ongoing maintenance? Because I know in other city council meetings, we've had discussions about proposed parks and such. And so we're building another park.
Yeah, certainly. That's a good question. So as I mentioned, the city has a standard, this 1.7 acres per 1,000 residents for community parks. We are currently just barely meeting that. That's about where we're at. So as the city continues to grow, the general fund is expected to increase, and then the portion that's allocated for park maintenance would theoretically be on the same percentage increase. In addition to that, we have a tremendous cadre of volunteerism for a number of the specialty elements. For example, the dog park, the tennis courts, the bike park already has a very strong showing of those who are interested in helping with certain parts of the maintenance. And so we try to dial into the volunteer aspect wherever it works.
And then, thank you. And then another question was, I know the Parks and Rec already approved this, so just clarifying, does this meet all of the needs assessments from the Parks and Rec's park assessment?
No, it does not.
Okay.
One of the reasons when we contracted for the Park and Rec Master Plan, we intentionally packaged the beginnings of the Park Master Plan for Centennial Park at the same time, with the anticipation that a good portion of those unmet needs that were identified in 2013 could be met at Centennial. And then there was a whole study looking at the practicality of that and whether they could be met and which ones wouldn't. So I would say we did a pretty good job of meeting a bunch of those there, but there are other specific elements. Neighborhood parks, for example, is probably the most obvious, where they need to be within a half mile of residential areas. Centennial can't serve that capability just because of where it's located. So there are a number of other things, other rec needs that cannot be met at Centennial.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other? Okay. Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm curious, you had mentioned the public comments that were received from our plucky high school volleyball player. What were some of the other comments that were received? And if you could just describe your response, if any, to those comments?
So the comments in preparation of this Planning Commission meeting, we did receive additional comment from Mr. Les Harris, was also acutely involved with the environmental document. And Mr. Harris was mainly expressing his concern about the preservation of wildlife and natural habitat and the potential impact on the community character of the park, as well as the potential for increased crime, concerns about community engagement and transparency, as well as the financial implications associated with this particular project. Individual also provided some additional survey information of 53 respondents for one survey, as well as 57 respondents for another survey. And then there was another individual who wrote in via USPS that had one critical question about how the city was intending to protect the existing environment that is that open nature area. So our response to these, in the volleyball portion, I mentioned the facilities will be included, I think, in phase 5 of this project. For Mr. Harris, I would say that The city council has been pretty direct in its expectations for being able to provide park needs through the adoption of the 2015 general plan and the park and recreation element, as well as receiving the parks and recreation needs assessment and the adoption of the entire master plan. And so the city is pursuing down that route of complying with city council's expectations and vision for providing recreational needs and amenities throughout the city. That being said, the environmental analysis that was provided and prepared for the project demonstrates, as part of the public record, the efforts to protect those existing habitat areas, such as the creekways. It goes into great detail to identify those areas and provide biological reconnaissance and surveys for those areas to show what do those areas look like, how do we protect those areas. And so by and large, a lot of the improvements that you'll see on the screen in front of you, those creekway areas are kind of being avoided on purpose, and you'll see the northern portion is part of the restoration effort. So yes, there are some concerns that are out there about whether or not we're going to be ruining this habitat that's already out there. We will say that prior to the city undertaking this effort in 1991, there wasn't much of anything that's been out there, that was out there before. And so a lot of the efforts that have gone forward with the community park has created that environment that you're seeing out there today. And if that's not a testament to the city trying to be a good steward of that land, then I don't know what is. So a lot of this plan, as well as environmental documentation, builds upon that effort to try and preserve that natural habitat and further enhance it so that way people can enjoy it. And you'll see on that, the larger pink area that's in the middle of the site introduces basins, it introduces walkable paths that people will be able to enjoy. Those paths are not out there right now.
Can you describe in a little bit more detail the mitigations that will be incorporated into the project?
Sure. So one of the mitigation measures that is going to be required is that this area is known to be suitable foraging habitat for many avian species, Swainson hawk, burrowing owls, white-tailed kites. So one of the obligations that the city bears is that we'll be working with Landify on is the mitigation of that land, finding elsewhere land that's suitable for that foraging habitat, and making sure that conservation easements are recorded on that equal amount of land elsewhere, because we're going to be developing on portions of those open field areas. Other mitigations are going to be required that are already built in to our general plan environmental impact report. That analysis that was done in 2015 anticipated that. We know that there are certain species that are specific to Vacaville as well as Solano County, and that there are going to be a set of minimization and avoidance measures. Here's what you need to do in order to be able to avoid impact to certain species. One of them might be you need to conduct surveys out at the site prior to doing any soil disturbing and depositing at that site to make sure you're not actually affecting any nests. Another one might be that you're purposely doing all of the work outside of the nesting and breeding period for avian species and things like that.
And so those are in this project?
Correct, yes, yes.
You know, my only real concern, this based off what you just said, is the burrowing owl, I think, is the attitudes about the burrowing owl have changed. This is literally brand new guidance. I know it's not, obviously this is more of a grandfathered document because it's a long time coming, this project is, but just our attitudes about the burrowing owl have evolved about that species. And, you know, I am just a little concerned about the public comments that we received. So just, you know, if you could just think a bit more about how we're going to be attentive to the public, some of the concerns raised by the public. I'd love to hear a little more about that as we react to public comment to come. Thank you, Chair Rudin.
Thank you. Do we have any other?
I had one more follow-up.
Okay, Commissioner
Albert, real
Vargas.
quick, you mentioned possible displacement of species. Has there been an area identified if they are displaced?
Well, you can't take a species. That's for one certain. So just make sure that it's clear that you see a bird out there, you can't just take it and move it or kill it. So one of the things that is common knowledge in the environmental realm is that when you have big fallow fields like this that are You know, they're great areas for mice, for all kinds of rodents, and they're great habitat for birds to come in and swoop in and grab them. And so the assumption is made that it's suitable for that type of habitat. And so what you're not doing is you're not taking a nest. You're taking the habitat that birds could use for seeking out food. That's permitted, but you have to mitigate for that. You have to say, we're taking it here, but we're going to make sure that it's preserved elsewhere in perpetuity and the exact same amount of acres. And that's a common practice that we've worked with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to make sure that we're doing the same thing that they are expecting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. First one is, the site is 276 acres. Roughly, and I hate to catch you off guard here. In that 276 acres, roughly how many acres or percentage-wise would be open space? Because that seems to be one of the biggest concerns. Looking at the map, I mean, just, kind of eyeballing it, I mean, it looks to be like roughly 50% or so. Sorry. I hate doing that to you guys.
You might buy me some time with that second question.
Okay, the second question I have, I think Mr. Hesterman will be able to answer, and this is more kind of a clarifying question after the council meeting. The timeline is, roughly 3 to 6 years or so, which there's many, many factors. And I was wondering if you can go into a bit of detail on the factors that lead up to that timeline, because some people are like, wow, how does it take this long?
Yeah, certainly. So we're talking about just phase 1.
Just the bike part, yes,
Which is the bike park.
Yeah, mostly just, focusing on the bike park.
There may be a tiering and an early start into the next phase, depending upon how our relationship goes. But just looking at the bike park alone, the procurement of sufficient soil, 900,000 cubic yards of soil, is going to take time. Just simply a mechanical bringing it into the site, placing it properly, contouring the land to make it look the way we want it to be, and then the final construction of the amenities on the park itself. We want to be maybe under-promising so that no one gets their hopes too high, but it largely is contingent on the situation around us. Are places developing? Is the dirt becoming available? And that depends upon the economy, how development is occurring elsewhere, whether that dirt is going to be available for us to put in Centennial. So it could go faster. It could take a little longer. We're anticipating, we're giving a range of time there for phase 1A. I hope I don't get too old to use the bike park before it's built, so I'm going to be pushing for that.
Right, okay, thank you. No, it was a very great presentation at the city council meeting last week. And so it was just, reading kind of the pulse of what people are asking on social media, so that's why I just kind of wanted to clarify at this time. And I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I got you an answer.
Awesome, I hate doing that to you
All right,
guys.
so on page 84 of the commission's packet, we go into details about what phase 1 looks like. And so on the screen, you'll see this large pink area. That's the best reference that we have. 115 acres is going to be part of that. But the calculation that's not included are these creek areas that are kind of omitted, as well as the restoration area that are not part of that 115 acres. So you would say 115
And the extra
plus.
wetlands and the existing wetlands.
Yeah, and the existing wetlands that are located to the south area. So 115 plus acres that will be preserved and enhanced for open space environments.
Great, where birds and other wildlife will be able to still be okay.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions. Commissioner Beaumont.
Albert, just a quick question. If we approve this, but let's say conditions change, what would be the process to look at this again to change the master plan? How would that work?
So the master plan isn't what's in front of the commission tonight. It's the major design review and the environmental determination about the master plan. So all the programming on the master plan was handled already by the Parks and Recreation Commission. So if things change of that master plan, what staff would do is we'd evaluate those conditions. what was it that the commission reviewed and made a decision on? And if there was enough of a change that would constitute being able to bring that in front of the commission, we would do so. We would also take a look at the environmental review and whether or not any changes to that master plan needs to be reevaluated and redisclosed to the public.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Banta?
Yeah, I have one more question. On one of the maps that it showed, the airport is kind of nearby. Is there any air path flights that go through or by the park, or do they have to sign off on anything saying that this is not in their pathway?
They don't need to sign off on anything. We took a look at our municipal code as well as the Unitary Airport Compatibility Plan, land use plan. And so really the main restrictions that are imposed on this one is on density, and it's pretty broad. It's, like 150 people per acre outside. So it's a pretty large amount of people that would have to be congregated within this area, but there's no real limitations imposed by the airport activities. All the recreational activities that are being proposed are ones that are allowed.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. At this time, I'm going to bring this over to receive public comment. And so you each will have 3 minutes, and I ask that you line up for the podium. Who wants to go first? All right.
Already mentioned, I was the one that I sent in a comment and everything, but I already had this prepared, so I might as well go ahead with it. He's already said a lot of things I've mentioned, but my name is Les Harris. I live on Derry Circle, which backs up on the Centennial Park Wildlife Refuge. We moved here 2 years ago, so I'm pretty new to the area, and we were told that the open space was a nature reserve. So that is one of the reasons we bought the house. We thought, oh, fantastic. It's going to be wildlife. It's going to be great. It's going to be unspoiled. It's going to be good. And I understand that there have been meetings, because we've only been in Vacaville two years, so we missed a lot of stuff. I understand there's been meetings, but many of us didn't know anything about it until we got the letter back in September asking to contribute to the mitigation report. My family and I regularly enjoy the tranquility, the peace, the grandchildren going out there and playing out in the back. It's really, really nice. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me with these concerns. So I conducted a survey around the neighborhood, around all the people that live around there. And I know I've sent the results, but we keep getting new results in all the time. And I'm kind of surprised only 3 comments came in about it. We have 69 people as of today that have taken the survey, and our community is pretty much split. And I've got the survey questions and the pie charts and the results of the survey. I can just give you guys, you can look at it. It was pretty much split on people that don't want anything done to it and people that want just 1 or 2 things done. But a lot of things people don't want done. I realize that there are some work to plan, but only 14% of the people who completed the survey felt they were engaged, and while 47% said they were not even involved or engaged at all. Now, however, this is given that we have come out of a pandemic, there's lots of migration, and what I understand, a lot of stuff went on before we moved here, so I didn't really know anything about that. We obviously want the area to be good for everybody, not just a 1 or 2. And I've talked to people, and I feel there are 4 main concerns that people keep bringing up. The impact on wildlife, which obviously will be affected if this goes ahead. The increased traffic into the area, especially the massive new parking lot over by the New Hope Church. The potential of crime, plus undesirable activities that go on impacting the safety of the residents who back up on the area. A lot of people have been complaining about that. And also, who will pay for this? I heard part of it, but does it mean our property taxes?
Your time is up. Thank you.
My name is Paula Fury, and I live at 471 Shannon. My backyard backs up to that field. I've lived there for 38 years, and we bought there because of the peace and tranquility. I see kids out there riding their bikes safely without their parents. They go fishing, even though they know there's no fish in the pond. We have enjoyed the quiet. We do have the soccer and ball fields to the right of us, which doesn't really impact us a lot, although we do hear it, but it's just there. My fear is I have a wrought iron fence so that I could look out to the beauty. And I'm really concerned about the development. This gentleman over here mentioned that the wildlife would not be impacted. Yes, it would. We're not even allowed to have our dogs off the leash at the moment. There's signs everywhere saying it will disrupt the wildlife, the habitat. We have coyote with her babies. We have owls. We have otters. We have beavers. We have deer. We have possum. They're everywhere. They run free and they're safe. My concern is he also mentioned the noise control, city guidelines, or I have a hard time believing that we are not going to hear the buzz of all the little motorcycles going on, and it's for the whole town. How many do we have in this town? Over 100,000 people in my backyard. It will be in my backyard. It will be in all of our backyards. And I'm just hoping that you take this all into consideration. I'm sorry, but this is really hitting home to me because I was raised here 64 years, and I've seen the chip away that is happening here in Vacaville. And it disheartens me a little, but I know growth is important. But why do you want to put it in a place where nobody wants it? Our families, this is a working neighborhood. This is bed, bath, homework, and dinner time. There was a lot of neighbors who could not be here today. Very busy, but rest assured, everybody that I have spoke with is opposed to this. It is just right in our backyard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Olga Kurtwright, and I live at 243 Sungate Court, which is a cul-de-sac right into Centennial Park, the tennis courts, the paved trail that goes all the way to the church. One of my main concerns is what is the distance? I can't tell from the map because I can't see. There's approximately, I would say, a mile to 2 mile residence down that paved path. Is that correct? I walk it, but I don't time it all the time. But how far is the distance between the activity that's planned, the master plan, from that? Do you know, maybe acreage wise, or how far are those houses? You know, because my house is right up there by the tennis courts, that cul-de-sac that faces the tennis courts. So what's the distance to that 2 mile residence, and which includes Shannon, to this project?
They'll be able to answer your questions after. So that,
Okay,
yeah,
so
they're
that's the
writing
question
notes.
I have.
Yeah.
What's the distance? And also, I support or concur with the first gentleman about the noise level, security concerns, you know, those issues that the property tax, the impact fee that you talked about. What does that mean? You know, we're already paying, it's gone up. So we're going to be affected again by, you know, some more tax, the impact fee. So how is that going to impact us? And the environmental study, again, I think it was mentioned that there was minimal impact on the environment. You know, that's who did the impact study. Do we, you know, it was in the letter here, but it wasn't complete. So all the things that were mentioned today, it looks like they were mentioned, but there's no result yet or finding. So are we going to get the findings or the results of what they addressed? The issues that they brought up include, you know, I didn't see answers to, I just saw that they were going to look at it. So is the public going to be privy to that report or whatever's generated? Again, I did move here 9 years ago to this house because I felt like I was out in the country. It's beautiful. I'm impressed with the city. I came from Southern California to Vacaville 9 years ago, and I was impressed with the upkeep because they have all the dry grass mowed. It's beautiful. The trees change colors in autumn. I mean, it's just beautiful. So to have a project that's saturated in that area, and you're saturating it with all these activities, why can't we just have, we don't mind, I think the majority of us, add one or two, but it's being saturated, and that's how we see it. And that's not going to improve our quality of life. You know, it's going to take away from our quality. So I do appreciate any consideration and any answers to my questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, so direct all questions to us, and they are taking very good notes. And so after the public comment, then they'll answer.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Shannon Lujan, and I am a resident in the Browns Valley area. So good evening, commissioners, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today regarding the proposed plan in the first phase of the project. As particular pieces, I just want to make sure that some of our concerns of local residents are also heard regarding some of the proponents of the plan, which includes a new hill, the bike course, and the parking lot. So first, I just want to address the hill and emphasize some concerns that we've been hearing from our residents regarding the transfer of dirt from a construction site to our community. One major concern is the soil stability. And if the new hill is not properly engineered, this can also create a risk regarding like site prone to erosion, some landslides, which could pose a significant risk also to the surrounding areas and disrupt the local ecosystem. So those are some considerations as well. And also being cautious as well of invasive species, that seedlings that might be in some of that dirt that might transfer over to that area as well, which could introduce pests as well as interrupting the local flora. And I also understand that the soil testing is being discussed. I just want to urge the city to consider hiring an independent third-party tester rather than relying solely on somebody that the contractor has an ongoing business relationship with. We just want to make sure that we preserve the integrity of whatever those results are from that study. And no offense to the contractor, but we just understand that there might be some financial interest and financial gain of keeping every client happy. And so we just think that getting those results done by a third-party tester, as well as making sure that those results are made public and to the residents, that also includes the city standards to each of those things that they're looking for, is going to be really important to also offset some of the mitigation. So this was also a concern brought up. Thank you for Commissioner Beaumont as well as Vice Mayor Ritchie discussing it, as well as at the city council meeting. And also to consider with that hill, there is ongoing maintenance as well as monitoring that will be necessary to ensure the ecological health as well as the stability of the hill. Particularly regarding the establishment maybe of native plants, however you can do to offset some of the erosion coming down, because adding new dirt also adds, as well as microbiomes and other sort of things that really start to seep into the surrounding land, which could offset some of that beautiful nature that we have already back there. So another concern with that is privacy, as well as the motorbike or the mountain bike area. A lot of people think it's going to be a motorcycle area. Please, let's make sure we have the signage out if we do move forward, and because there could be a lot of pollution that's caused as a result. So
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Rose Meisel. I'm from 602 Tipperary Drive, which is in the area of that park. And I did send in the letter that I have here, so I'm not going to read it. So the points I want to touch on now are some responses from what was already presented in the presentation. And I have to say, as a person who, as a video production company owner, I commend you for how slick your presentation is. I want to just go there, but it was glossed over. I mean, one thing that they were talking about was they have figured out how to protect nature. Well, let me tell you something. You go up to where the new dog park is, you go to the area where they want to put a wedding facility with an orchard, you come down to the purple area, which they say is the area that they're going to preserve for nature, and you come down to the park for the bikes. That right now is your nature area. What they're planning on doing is taking out for the dog park, taking out for the orchards and such, taking out for the bike park. Now you see that little purple area, light purple area in the middle. That's what they're going to leave for nature. In the process of that, they're going to weave through a bunch of walking trails. Now, I want everybody to be able to enjoy this park. I walk it every day. I counted just the other day 14 pheasants taking off from right where they want to put that bike park and flying across that little dirt road that they've got there for maintenance. 14. Let me tell you, they start dumping dirt for that bike park. Those areas where those pheasants live, they're going to leave. Something leaves. It's not going to be easy like bringing dirt back and those pheasants are going to come back. That's not going to happen, okay? You start doing anything to develop that area and you disturb the animals that are there, they're going to try and find something quieter, someplace quieter to go. They're not coming back. So the purpose that you develop this for initially and let people have nature, you're driving it away, okay? There was a comment about the soccer fields, and I understand that's a private thing, and I'm kind of not agreeing that the city should have such a big part of that park, you know, dedicated to private, but that's a different day. We can talk about that. Those owls that they were talking about, again, they were driven out in order to put that soccer field in. Nature is going to go away. I learned about this, not because of the city, because the Vacaville Reporter, anything that you post, my husband gets our mail, he throws it away, I don't see it. You know how I learned about all this? From that girl right there. You know what she did? She stood on the corner of that path, passing out flyers because she's so concerned about this space. She stood there for hours. That's how I learned about it. I don't understand.
Thank
I'm
you.
out of time.
Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
hope she.
I am Carrie Dowling. I live on 167 Tyrone Court. It's the court that pretty much comes right off of the middle of Shannon Drive. It's the first home we bought when we got married in '93. So we've lived there for 31 years. The reason why I wanted to get up and talk today is it rubbed me a little bit the wrong way about when we were talking about the habitat that was out there. And the only things that were really mentioned were the small kestrels and mice. There is much more out there than that. My husband walks the dog path every day. We have seen those signs that have been posted, I don't even know how many years ago, about not letting your dogs off lead because of the animals that are breeding and hatching and everything else not to disturb. Now all of a sudden, we're talking about moving mice and little birds aren't going to be able to find their feed like they would, but they'll figure it out. That's not all that's out there. And how you expect us humans with our dogs to obey the leash laws, and yet you're willing to break apart this open area, this beautiful, like the lady before me said, there's nothing more gorgeous than watching the sun come out there and to hear the coyotes talking to each other and to see the pheasants flying. And you're gonna mess that all up. How much usage is really interested in this? Want to build the bike park? That I'm actually okay with because it's away from everything. But that middle pink section, that is where all the wildlife, and let's really list them. We're looking at rabbits, we're looking at coyotes, we're looking at pheasants, we're looking at egrets, we're looking at owls, we're looking at hawks, we're looking at kites. There is so much beautiful wildlife out there, and you guys are just gonna blow it all away? Not right. Especially with those signs that you have posted about not letting our dogs off lead because of that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Naomi, and every day my sister and I play at what we call the Backpack, also known as Centennial Wildlife Sanctuary. We hike, run, and explore at the beautiful land that the city has provided. We have seen a family of deer and several pheasants, quail, which is also our state bird, snakes, rabbits, mice, gophers, turtles, foxes, beavers, ducks, and frogs, to name just a few animals. At night, we hear the cries of the coyotes that make their home in the backpack. We know that this land better than most. We know that in the spring, wild puppies and some of the animals that I listed live in the area that the current proposed park is going to build a parking lot and dump a bunch of dirt and call it a bike track. Like the old song says, they paved paradise and put it up the parking lot. This is paradise for many of the Vacaville's residents. Please reconsider the current plan of building a parking lot and bike park. I'm speaking for myself and all the wild animals that can make it tonight. Thank you for your time and consideration.
You.
And I live in a house that backs up to the parking lot, and I think we have a lot of concerns, especially about the wildlife. We see so much wildlife back there. Like, I think I don't have to list any because she just did. And I'm also concerned about water. Where are we going to get the water source for? I mentioned there was going to be a water park, and as a house that backs up to this, I'm kind of concerned about, since there's a drought in Vacaville, like every 2 years. And so I'm very concerned about, is that going to be taking from our water source? And so I like them to address that issue. And also, I've seen homeless people, I go on a run there sometimes because I'm in cross country and stuff. And I've seen some people that are homeless just kind of walking out there. And there also is, we also hear some dirt bikes out there just at night, and it kind of, wakes us up. And so I'm also wondering about, a lot of people think that this is going to be a dirt bike course, and there's just going to be so much noise and stuff like that. My mom works remotely, so she's just going to have, she goes on Zoom calls, and she's just going to have all that. So the church that also backs up to the area, New Hope, has also experienced significant issues with illegal activity in their parking lot, so much so that they had to put up a gate. And I urge leaders to consider measures that will ensure the bathrooms are locked at night, because there's probably just going to be a bunch of graffiti and stuff like that. And, the safety of both residents and users of the space must be a priority and requires consistent maintenance to address any potential safety concerns. If we're just going to have volunteers here, sometimes we might be short on volunteers to make sure that this is going to be locked at night, and make sure that people who don't have any homes are going to just flock to these bathrooms and stuff like that. And the biking course, there's going to be dirt bikes. I don't like that. And in conclusion, while I appreciate the intent behind this project, we just don't really want it. I mean, there's a lot of people that do want it, but we have a lot of parks already. So, my ideal thing would just be find another place to do it. And it is crucial to carefully consider these potential drawbacks and implement strategies to mitigate them. And making these types of changes require, a lot of maintenance for park developments that are not maintained, so crime rates. So I ask these points to be taken into consideration, and thank you.
Thank you. You've had your 3 minutes already. No, you've had your 3 minutes. No, I'm sorry, you've had your 3 minutes.
Denise Harris, and I live on Jerry's Circle. And her question is there any way to move the bike park into a different area?
I'm sorry, can you speak up just a little bit?
Wanted to know if there's anywhere to move the bike park to a different area.
Oh, is there any way to move the bike park?
Yeah, to more where the hills are. I think that's what. Oh, the big open field over there on the other side of Browns Valley.
Oh.
Yeah, because this is already, like they said, there's wildlife all over the place. I'm out there like sometimes 3 times a day, out there just running around, taking my grandkids out there. And it just breaks my heart. You see all the wildlife, and there's no way they're going to be bringing in tons of dirt. And then if there's bikes running all over, the wildlife are going to be terrified all the time. So, it's going to ruin it. I have nothing prepared because I don't like talking in front of people, but give that an up, if you could move the things to a more, area where there's not homes, where there's other, there's lots of other places out there where there's not a bunch of homes and stuff. So that would be something to consider. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public speakers? Public comments? Or-
Mike Fury, my wife has already stated that we have a cyclone fence, right on our fence behind her house. And so I see everything that goes on out there. And we walk our dog out there every night. I'll bet 3 times a week we call the police because there's motorcycles out there. There's 4-wheelers out there. Last night, I was sitting out in my backyard at 10 o'clock, 3 pickup trucks drove right along the path that was right behind the house. And these aren't city trucks. These are people out there 4-wheeling way out there, wherever it is. And they can't handle what's going on there now. How are they going to handle it when you're going to make this park and they got over 1,000 extra parking places? So is it 1 person per car, 4 people per car? How many people are going to be out there? None of the people along this boulevard here, they don't want all this noise. They don't want all these lights shining in their backyard all night long.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other public comment before I close public comment? I close public comment, bring it back to commissioners to deliberate. Do we have any commissioner comments? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And also can you guys please address?
So a lot's been said, and so at the conclusion of my responses, I'm going to be turning it over to my colleague Hugh Hesterman to elaborate further on the process that took place between 2013 and 2023 for the parks need assessment as well as the development of this master plan. I'd also recommend for the commission to bring up Landify to help respond about some of their processes. So I'll take them one by one. The first item that I'd like to address, there was a bit of a claim that staff said that the project's not going to impact any wildlife. To clarify, the environmental document that was circulated and prepared was explicitly to disclose impacts created by the project. And so, although I may have mentioned just a few of those species to occur at the site, the document goes into much greater length to disclose all of those particular species that may be there and that have the potential to be out at that site. Other comments included concerns. I heard multiple of motocross, motorized bikes, motorcycles. Those are not allowed to occur at that park. So a lot of those things that have been said about that activity, they're illegal. They won't be allowed. And this bike park component is not a motorcycle component. It is a bicycle, BMX bicycle park. There was a question about the distances to the recreational amenities to the residents. And so it is identified in the staff report. So I'll just read it just briefly. The most notable items that we wanted to bring to the attention, the interior side that's abutting the residential development to the west in Browns Valley. The closest item would be the dog park recreational facility. That's 180 feet away. The bike park component is 400 feet away. And we'll note that as part of these amenities, the proposal includes enhancement of the perimeter pedestrian pathway that would go around the existing area. So largely that area is intended to be preserved, which is that pedestrian pathway. But the most notable ones that have the potential to kind of create noise, we cited that in our staff report, all within the required setback that's required by the code. There were a lot of comments about the saturation of activities at this park, the concerns about why is there so much going on at this park. And I think the general answer before handing it off to my colleague about the context of how does a park get planned is really, you know, the park process that occurred preceding this entitlement process was largely the vision of the council through the implementation and the adoption of the city general plan, which include the parks and recreation element, that includes the adoption of the parks and recreation master plan that identified we need a community park. This is an ideal location for it, and start that park planning process. And so I think that might be helpful to kind of keep that in the context of the discussion. With regards to concerns about soil stability, the types of soil quality, and those items, I think that Landify might be best equipped to talk about how do they prepare the site? How does the soil get deposited? And how do they make sure that once it's deposited, it's not going to result in many of those concerns that were expressed by the public? And then the concerns regarding water, bathrooms being locked up, and then the question about moving the bike park, I'll hand off to my colleague, Mr. Hugh Hesterman, the city's park planner.
With Chair's permission, I'll give a real brief background on how we got to where we are today. In 1998, the city had a master plan for the southern portion of the park that included filling 40 acres of wetlands to build soccer fields. There was a plan approved by council for 9 soccer fields total south of the southern tributary of Horse Creek. So that plan has largely been set aside. The remaining, the 4 existing fields plus the 5th interim field would stay where they are, except for the 5th field would be flipped over to what's shown in the master plan. So it would preserve, this plan would preserve those existing wetlands. In addition, up until basically about when the general plan was adopted, there was an expectation from a small number of people that around 100 acres would be built for a city golf course, an executive size golf course. And so the question came to our office, this came short, or this had been simmering for a long time. Does the city need an executive golf course, and would Centennial Park be the right place to do that? We hired a consultant to look at the feasibility of that. Keep in mind, this was the same time as Green Tree was experiencing a huge decline and not able to keep up their income from rounds of golf. The feasibility study indicated that it would not be able to support that. So that opened up the question then when we went into our study with what sort of things should be in the master plan. As Albert noted earlier, 2013, we did the needs assessment study that looked at just the city overwide and said, what all are we currently providing for the residents, and what do the residents, what's missing? What would the residents like to see? Existing residents. And then those are projected out also into looking at new people that would be coming to Vacaville. I noted that there was a few people who spoke tonight are relatively new to Vacaville, newer than even all these old efforts indicated. So then after the needs assessment, we went into our Park and Rec master plan effort. after the general plan. The general plan reaffirmed the ratio of park acres. One of the speakers noted tonight that we already have enough parks. As a park planner, I would take issue with that. We don't, not according to city standards. City standards are we're to have 4.5 acres per 1,000 residents, and we don't meet that. So we are trying to continually bolster that with whatever means we can, recognizing that the funds are not necessarily available to purchase the land, not necessarily available to develop the land, and not necessarily available to maintain the land into perpetuity, which those three legs are super important to maintain a solid park and rec master plan over the whole city. Then we looked at Centennial Park specifically. We had numerous public meetings, including a statistically valid telephone survey, online meetings, pop-up surveys. I think we did 13 different pop-up surveys at events around town, trying to gather information from interested people. This also was an interesting time because we see the decrease in newspaper viability and the advertising there. So we started to reaching out big time into social media. We posted lots of posters at the park itself. We used QR codes so people could scan it with their phones if they had a smartphone and keep information in front of them. 2016 to 2019, we had multiple, probably, I would say less than 100, but more than 50 meetings, public meetings on the interim dog park and the associated uses around there. We assisted VYSL, who at that time was the curator of the leaser of the Horse Creek soccer fields, to make sure that their future needs were going to be met, anticipating that soccer was continuing to increase in demand. So all of these public meetings we kept reaching out and trying to find out what people actually needed, not only those who were currently using the park, but also those who we knew were coming to Vacaville in the future. The 2013 Parks and Rec needs assessment pointed to something that was really interesting. I think staff well understood that hiking, biking, walking, trail activities, and access to nature, far and away, #1 activity, not only nationwide, but also here locally in Vacaville. So we changed our approach a little bit and said, I don't think a golf course is the right thing to put in Centennial Park. So what is? So we hired consultants to ask those questions, to engage with the public. And this went on for many years. I'm not sure if any of you on the dais have seen the advertisements. I hope you have, that we had over the years, from the needs assessment to the Park and Rec Master Plan to the Centennial Park Master Plan, the dog park planning efforts, and then finally the Centennial Park Master Plan that was approved by Park and Rec Commission last year. And then we had additional specialized meetings to just looking at the bike park itself. And I would say we probably had, the first meeting, I think we had 86 participants in person. Keep in mind also, if you will, that our COVID situation got in the middle of all this planning. And so we had to take a step back and say, how can we reach people? Going through the newspaper doesn't work anymore. I think one person spoke up at one of the master plan sessions and said, I saw it in the newspaper. Everybody else was either through social media, word of mouth, or via the giant banners that we had posted at the site. So there was a tremendous amount of, in fact, I can't say I've ever been involved in a master plan process that involved as much public outreach. I am very grateful. I'll take a little plug here. I'm very grateful for the folks who spoke up, having enjoyed the existing trails and the native plantings. All of that was put in recent years through grant monies. We put in over 2,000 native species planted there, restored the creeks, paved the trails so people could have access to nature, hiking, biking, and walking activities. And this plan actually adds probably that much that's there now, again, to what is currently out there. So I could go into the responses to some of the comments.
Water and bathroom?
Yeah.
Maybe in the bike park?
Sure. Water, very interesting. So right now, city water is what's being used to irrigate all that out there. There is a possibility of getting access to the SID water, which is available off of Vacaville Parkway. We haven't got that solidified yet, but that would be ultimately the goal. That is a city policy, is to use raw or reclaimed water wherever possible for circulation or for irrigation. Also, I should point out that the new plantings, with the exception of the turf, are largely native species. They require much less water to start with. They require less care along the way. They're more resistant to diseases. It's a win-win to put in native species, and which is what has been done in all of the plantings we've put out there today. The Department of Utilities also has a master plan that Albert alluded to that would ultimately, we don't know how many years it would be, but ultimately route the reclaimed water from our water treatment plant up Vacaville Parkway and down into the industrial area. And if and when that occurs, we could take advantage of that for irrigation too. So that certainly would be our goal. Albert, I missed one thing.
Bathrooms?
Oh, bathrooms, yeah.
Okay.
For those who don't want anything to happen at the park, they still need to heed the call of nature. Bathrooms is one of probably the most contested issues in parks and recreation, because everybody wants a bathroom when you need one. They don't want a bathroom when it comes to maintaining it and to having illicit activities going on around it. A couple people mentioned that there would be a problem with locking the bathrooms up. I don't see that being an issue throughout the city. All of our park bathrooms are locked up every night. They're opened again during the day, in the morning. The existing bathrooms that are located at in the core of the baseball complex are locked at night. They're opened again in the day. But keep in mind, it's over a mile from the bike park area down to that restroom. So that's too far to ask someone to go all the way down there to use the bathroom. So we do anticipate several new bathrooms at different locations, key locations, with this master plan. And those would all tie into the existing sewer trunk line that traverses north and south through the park. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Albert just asked me about visibility on parks. So that's a real big concern. Generally speaking, the more we refer to it as eyes on the park, the more people that are properly using a park, the better safety you have. It's those little dark corners, those places where people can hide and do things that you don't want them to do, that usually cause the problems. For that reason, we try to keep the trees lifted up. We try to keep open view straight in, but it's really the people themselves out there using the park properly that help maintain a healthy park environment. Some of you may remember a few years ago, we had a terrible time with alcohol at Lagoon Valley Park. The police were handcuffed because they couldn't arrest somebody for having a bottle in their hand. They had to actually have it open in their case. So people would come in. We had these huge wild parties, trucks coming in full with the beds full of different types of alcohol. We changed our ordinance to give the police the power to be able to make arrests for that. And largely that problem was largely gone because now it can be enforced. We also have an active ranger program that has just started to patrol Centennial Park. I happened to be out the other night putting up our posters and ran into our ranger. So I know he's out there. And this was probably around 8 o'clock in the evening. I know there's a problem with motorbikes. When I say motorbikes, I'm talking about motorized motorcycles and four-wheelers going out there illicitly. So obviously, one gentleman mentioned that they call the police frequently. That's what's needed. We do need to shut that down. And we don't want motorized bikes using our bike park. We don't want them out there harassing the wildlife. We don't want them messing up and causing all kinds of wetland issues and all the other troubles that occur from that. I am aware that happens. We're trying to shut it down, and we want to make sure that our police have the tools necessary to to arrest those who are doing that. Yeah, so regarding third-party dirt, let me ask if Jonathan with Landify, the president of Landify, would like to speak to that. Jonathan, would you come up and give a little? Jonathan is the president of Landify, the United States arm of ECT Corporation. As I mentioned, they've been doing this in Europe for about 50 years. So they have developed I think a pretty good a way of making sure the dirt that comes in is good.
Yes, on the traceability procedure. So the key of everything is really transparency. So we will obviously make every analysis that we do from a site that wants to bring dirt to Centennial Park available to the city and to the public. So any third party can review what is coming in. And what's also very important is that we will know where the trucks are dumping on the site. So we will be able to trace and to know exactly where the dirt is coming from for each of the parts of the park. The park, in terms of stability, is going to be built little by little. Again, we have more than 50 years experience in building landforms and parks with very high elevations. Stability is everything, is at the center of everything, and our obviously know-how internally, but also externally, relying on third parties, having geotechnicians inspecting the site, making sure that everything's stable. Again, this is really our business and it's key for us, and we're more incentivized than anyone to make sure that everything is stable. And so that's really going to be our concern. There's the way we build the park little by little to ensure that, and to ensure that every stage of the development of the bike park, everything is checked in terms of stability. That is obviously very key. The kinds of materials that we're going to use is also very important. We sort the materials to reuse the ones that are proper for each part of the slopes. So that's also very important in the way that we just work around building all of our developments. And so that's also all the know-how that we've accumulated throughout the years is going to be put into this project. This is a very important project for the company. It's the biggest project that we're starting in Northern California. So we are very, very committed to making it the best project ever.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Bryden is like I mentioned, the president of ECT. His corporation will manage the entire project, but he alluded to this, didn't specifically say there will be a whole design team involved in operating or designing the project. Somas Engineering, a local engineering firm, will be responsible for ensuring that we have proper compaction along the way. We'll have I think there was a question about the stability of the hill. All of that will be done with a great deal of oversight. The city will have a grading permit out. Actually, it's already been applied for to verify that the designs do meet standards, engineering standards for all that type of activity. And in addition to the traceability reports, the city will be able to obtain those at any time we want in terms of verifying that that the standards are being adhered to. So hopefully that adds a little bit of breadth to the situation.
Great. I think we got through all the concerns. Commissioner or Vice Chair Lightfoot.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for your comments. I have a couple questions about some of the processes we went through and questions that we've had tonight. So, what we're looking at here in the Planning Commission is whether it meets the consistent general plan, and whether it meets, if it's consistent with our Parks and Rec element. My question is, so this is currently designated park space, correct? So can you explain to me why the area in its existing condition doesn't meet our current status to be parkland? Or if it's existing park space, why do we need to change it so that it does meet our park element or our general plan?
Yeah, I think I can do that. We have in our inventory some park acres that are not yet developed. There's some at Nelson Park. There's some at Patch Park. But Keating Park, excuse me, not Keating, Centennial Park is far and away where the majority of the undeveloped acres are. And that kind of gets back to the question earlier about how much of the unmet recreational needs can Centennial provide. But it has been in the city's Park and Rec master plan as well as the general plan as it used to be actually, we had a category called City Park. And it was extremely confusing because people thought, aren't all parks city parks? With the 2015 general plan update, we changed that. So we put Centennial Park into the category of community parks because they serve the entire community. It's not just a local park. But it has always been designated as, when I say always, I mean from back 1990, when the general plan was done back then, this land was shown as a city park, a community park at that time. Additional land was added to the north through redevelopment activities, and that land then was added to the inventory of parkland. But as mentioned, a lot of it was not developed. It's been, in fact, you can see in the aerials that they'll disc it around the perimeters every year for fire protection to make sure that doesn't happen. But it is categorized as undeveloped parkland. The other category we have, of course, is open space, which some recreational activities can occur in open space also, but usually not the active type of recreational activities that all of our parklands take.
Is there anything in the packet that shows how this plan changes those your goals, or in what those, whether, so if this is designated undeveloped park, what's the offset that we're gaining from this towards those things you listed?
The offset.
Is my question clear?
Would you be able to rephrase it? I think that we're trying to find out exactly. Are you saying that right now, much of the area to the north of the existing development is, yes, it is wildlife habitat. Yes, it is part of the creeks, but it's also undeveloped parkland. It is what happens with land when the city doesn't have funding for developing it. It is grass that needs to be mowed to make sure that it doesn't pose a fire hazard. But, you know, city residents end up finding a way to use those undeveloped portions of land. And so that much of the testament tonight has been about walking into those areas that don't have designated walking paths, but have been eventually aligned by individuals, just repetitiveness over those grass areas to experience that open area. The benefit and the change that is occurring here is that you're taking raw land that was always planned for a park. Now you are further enhancing it to what city standards are to actually use it, to improve it. And so if you would imagine, you know, one of our neighborhood parks, if it is an empty field, sure, people will find a way to use it. They'll play soccer on it. They'll walk around on it. But once you improve it with those enhancements that are intended as part of that park master plan, it is then much further more value to the community for all of those other things that are planned for it. And this particular plan has a variety from intense uses and recreational uses to more open space areas to the northern area.
So what I'm trying to grasp is how do we, in its current status, what are we gaining by adding these amenities to our Parks and Rec element? What is there a direct ratio of intense public use in our Park and Rec element? Is there, are we currently meeting our open space requirement? So we have goals within that element that this park plan is going to be meeting. What are the things that we're gaining in as an attribute for adding this park that make our park element whole? Or
okay, I think I get where you're going on that. Through the needs assessment, it's a wonderful document. If you ever get a chance to take a look at it, very statistically it demonstrates answers to your questions there in visual form. The things that there's certain items that we're lacking, certain elements that we feel our standards don't provide enough of currently. And some of those one of them is hiking, biking, walking, access to nature. There are other things too. Some people would say, we don't have enough soccer fields. And we don't have enough, prior to the dog park here, the only dog park we had was in Lagoon Valley. People would have to get on the freeway and drive out there to exercise their dog. So there was a number of things that were identified very clearly as the citizens wanted either more of or some of. A bike park was one of those things. We already have a small skate park over at Three Oaks, but there was a desire for more challenging type of skate park. So that's been included in the plan here. We don't have, well, let me back up. We do have some ratios, if you will, of, X amount of basketball courts per 1,000 residents and that kind of thing. In our recent Park and Rec Master Plan, our consultant actually recommended we back away from that because it doesn't allow enough flexibility to what the public currently needs. When our last Park and Rec Master Plan was done, there was no such thing as pickleball courts. At least we didn't hear about them. Nobody had a dog park, things that have in more recent years have become really needed by the community. We weren't responsive enough to get and plan well enough in advance. So here we're taking the information we have today, starting literally, I would say 2013 and maybe even earlier, that's over a decade. Probably some things will change in the future. Some new activity will come up that we don't know of today, and we have to be responsive. And so we always do try to design new amenities that are flexible. One of those would be tennis courts that can double as a pickleball court, for example. May not be ideal, but it gets people something that they need. And so there will be changes. I can guarantee there will be changes as this moves forward. Even in the bike park area itself, we have a concept plan for that. That's the direction we're going. We have a strong contingent of people that have indicated they want to be involved in the design of that and the actual use of that. And then all throughout the other elements that are on here, you heard the one young lady talk, or I think it was in a written form, talking about the interest in sand volleyball courts, right? City doesn't have one of those today, not even one. We have some informal grass courts and one that's on pavement, not ideal for volleyball. So those kinds of things, we glean those things from the public on an ongoing basis. Through our programming efforts, we take surveys regularly to find out how people like the facilities and what was lacking when our own programs operate, to find out what people need. And we try to push that into the next generation and say, what is the next thing that people are going to need out here? But to answer you, the bigger question is, right now we're meeting just barely our community park acreage, developed community park acreage for the number of residents we currently have. But as we know, the city's growing. And so we have plans in place to keep on building more community parks to keep that ratio where it should be. Some of those are going to be at Centennial.
Okay,
thanks. Okay, so thank you very much. The overwhelming comments tonight are about the existing nature and the animals that live there. I know that we can go through the mitigated negative declaration and the offsets that we're doing, and that's what we look at on a regular basis. Not very reader friendly for the community to understand how it really goes, what really goes into it or what we're doing. So we've input currently other nature items into the area, correct? So you mentioned a couple of them and some research that we've put into this park already.
Yes.
Does this plan maintain those that we've already put into place? And how does it, can you kind of go on how it might expand onto them if, which areas are you leaving unchanged or trying to kind of cultivate what we've already put into the area?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a good question. The creeks are the most critical. They're kind of the heart of the nature areas, if you will. They attract all sorts of wildlife for obvious reasons, and so there's sort of a tiering in the design of the park. The southern park is the most active uses of the ball fields and the soccer fields and the dog park and all that kind of thing. The next area is a little bit of a step down, more of a nature connection and educational area. So there's children's play area in there, for example, and some of the gardens and things that are more of nature tamed, if you will, for the public to learn about that. Even the trails that we've installed going along the creeks, and we've restored those creeks, pulled out a lot of the invasive species. There's a number of stops, if we call them interpretive sites, where people can read a little bit about what you're seeing, learn about it, and if you want to get more information, there's a QR code there. You can click on that and find out more about whatever it is that's unique about this particular site. We want to build on that and make more of that available for the public so they can be good stewards of what they see. They'll be voting on things too, just like this park plan. We want to make sure that they know that this is a valuable space and why it's valuable. If you don't understand what you're seeing, then you won't appreciate it. So I don't have a number for you, for example, how many new trees are going to be planted. I can tell you at the bike park, we're committed to another 200 new trees in an area that's pretty much 0 trees right now. And that's just the start. So all of the existing pathways and plantings that have been done over the last 10 years or so, including the signs that say keep your dog off on leash, right? Those are going to be maintained and augmented. A rough guess, if I go out on a limb, it maybe double the number of trails that are available. So does that answer your question?
I'm going to go to Commissioner Vargas, then Commissioner Banta, and then Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, just real quickly on the bike park, what types of bikes, vehicles are going to be used? I may have missed that in this bike park.
Yeah, no, excellent question. There was some, obviously, we didn't make that clear. So human-powered bicycles are the mainstay for these types of parks. There is a new trend. You've probably seen the advertisements on TV for battery-powered, battery-assisted bicycles, and there's a whole tiering of types for those. Some of those have to have pedal assist and have to, be under certain horsepower and under 25 mile an hour and all that sort of thing. Our bike park specialist, though, who has been assisting in this design, has told us that they don't seem to be gaining favor in these types of parks, typically because they don't handle as well. They're too heavy. The weight of the batteries takes up that. We do believe there will be some of that, and probably that's okay if they are the type, I think it's the type 1 and type 2, which are the very basic bikes. When you get to the higher speed bikes, electrically assisted bicycles that are designed for, say, scooting down the road, that can go over 25 miles an hour, that would be totally inappropriate here. The city currently does not have a code that makes this delineation. We have talked to our ranger for all the trails that are in Lagoon Valley. There are people up there using electrically assisted bicycles. My view on that is that if having that electrical assistance gets more people out in there, just like you would say an electric wheelchair allows somebody who has mobility issues, can't go as far. Well, if you can give them a motor and allow them to enjoy an area that they couldn't before, that's great. But we don't want them to abuse the trails. We don't want them to cause problems for other people. We don't want them to scare other hikers, horses, and that sort of thing. So for the bike park, we'll start off believing that it's going to be human-powered bicycles. And if we open it to bikes that have a certain amount of electrical or battery assistance, sounds like it'd be okay.
So no dirt bikes, no quads.
When you say dirt bikes, to be clear, motorized, yeah, gasoline powered, absolutely not, yeah.
Okay, great. And I know that was some of the concern for some of the residents. And certainly, given the issues with individuals driving out there illegally, it's almost rewarding such behavior by allowing them to have dirt bikes and quads and such. What phase is that in again? I'm trying to recall.
So the bike park area is phase 1A.
Phase 1A. Okay.
All of the pink that you see is considered phase 1, but we've decided to start with a bike park and move in a southerly direction, basically. That could change a little bit.
Gotcha.
The bike park is phase 1A.
And one last question. Was there ever a consideration for anything else other than a bike park?
At that location?
At that location.
Actually, we considered everything. Just because of the proximity of the industrial area to the north, the Poudre Canal to the east, industrial area across the canal, it just seemed like an ideal location for that. It's kind of remote for a lot of the other things that we looked at. So I know somebody suggested, actually a couple people suggested that we move the bike park to an entirely different area. But this particular location seemed to have solved all the proximity problems that we looked at in considering a bike park somewhere else. It had enough distance, enough space, enough acreage to start with, and it was still a natural area, which the bike park is going to be largely dirt surfaced. It's not going to be, highly developed.
Gotcha. Understood. I didn't know if there were any other areas in Vacaville that we looked at. For example, I think of Vanden Road and all the construction going there. There's open land, open field.
Commissioner Banta.
Thank you. My question was kind of to clarify a little bit what Commissioner Lightfoot asked. So, because you've mentioned a lot about the ratio of parks, so 4.5 acres to 1,000 residents. So currently as this park stands, it's not meeting that. So if we were to develop this park, you're saying we would be increasing the acreage per residence?
The last part of what you said is correct. If we develop this park, we would be increasing our ratio. But let me just clarify a little bit on the ratio. So that's that 4.5 acres that I was talking about. It's broken down into 3 categories: 1.7 acres for community park, which is what this is; 1.8 acres per 1,000 residents for neighborhood parks. That's your smaller walk-to parks. And then the final 1 acre is for Lagoon Valley, our regional park. Those are the 3 types of parks that it's pretty common. I would say most cities break up their park needs into those types of categories. We do tailor it to our own specific needs. But to clarify, it's only the 1.7 acres, the community park portion, that we are currently satisfying with the current number of residents we have. We're behind in the other categories.
Sure. So we're behind in the other categories. If we were to not develop this park as such planned, would it still meet the general plan needs of the 1.7 per acres? Like if we were to leave it with just the existing bike trails,
yeah,
what are we still meeting our goals, or are we only going to meet our goals if we develop this park?
Gotcha. Well, when we look at those numbers, we look at developed acres. So this would remain, if we did nothing out here, it would remain largely undeveloped. Yes, the people could still, as Albert said, people could still walk around out there, but it wouldn't be cataloged or categorized as developed acres. And we would have to find someplace else to develop acres. We have, I think, a total of 8 community parks. One of those is the Play for All Park that has recently been contributed to the city. And there's an 11 acres to the east of that is on the horizon for future future community park development when that area develops. And I mentioned already, Nelson Park has some and Patch Park has some. So those are areas that we could also make up for some of the shortage in community park acres as we gain residents.
Okay. And so then, because some of the questions and concerns have been like the saturation of the development. So is there a plan that, and I know that's not what this meeting is necessarily about, because Parks and Rec has already approved it, correct? But if it's meeting the general plan, that's what this meeting is about. And so if developing it isn't necessary to meet the general plan, then that could be in question, correct?
I might add additional context. The evaluation of compliance isn't whether or not developing a project would further the general plan. It's whether or not a project is consistent with what the vision was already adopted by City Council.
Okay.
So City Council sets the standard when they adopt various documents, and those documents are the general plan from 2015 and the Parks and Rec master plan for the entire city. That's their vision for the entire city. And so subsequent activities that occur after those need to be compliant with that original vision. And that's the test that is upon this commission is, does it comply with that general plan? Does it comply with those existing zoning standards?
Okay. Thank you. And then my second question is the bike path or the pathways that are being proposed in the open space area, the pinkish area, how do those correlate to the existing pathways that residents are saying that they're already using? Is it doubling it? Is it tripling it? Are they along the same pathways? Or are we completely making up new pathways?
So I guess the question was asked earlier if any of the existing paths would be eliminated, and no, this would be building on the existing circulation pattern there, trying to provide more opportunities and a variety of opportunities. One of the things that we tried to do with paving the paths along the creek was to make them wheelchair accessible and all-weather accessible. Somebody mentioned the use of strollers. A lot of people got little kids, want to put them in a stroller. It's hard to do on a dirt trail, right? And so a paved trail does provide that all-weather surface. We also have an interesting need out here for runs. When I say runs, I'm talking about organized events. There's a path in here that can meet a standard 5K route, and the National Running Day, International Running Day, it's been held out here now for the last, I think, five years or so. It's a Saturday morning, 2 or 3 hours. It's done and over with, but it enables the runners to run entirely off street, which is a safety issue, and it's obviously more fun to run in a nice environment than down a city street. That has been held. We have a lot of runs that are held at Lagoon Valley Park, but most of them require coming back into the paved road, and you have to shut down traffic for safety reasons and keep people from running over the runners. So here we've intentionally designed it to have a variety of paths that can be done off street without interacting with the vehicles. And we will augment that with additional trails. Most, I think, will probably be surfaced with decomposed granite, which is kind of an in-between surface between just plain dirt and asphalt paving. There probably will be more of both, would be my guess. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Commissioner Klein, did you still have a question?
Thank you, Chair. So I think that I would add so the tests that you articulated for what we have to do tonight is the general plan zoning, right? And I would add, CEQA, right? And so I have some questions. Before I get into that, I think one of the things that I heard from the community tonight that was pretty clear to me is that they all opposed it. And I think that that's interesting because they all live like right there. So, that's a concern. Like, I don't want to gloss over that. I think that the public relations test is more of like the spirit of why we're here. So I think that if the community doesn't support the project, I think we have a problem. So I'm just going to be upfront about that. And then some troubling things that I heard, just like in terms of like traffic and transportation a couple times, was that I've heard a couple times tonight from this table that we're going to be bringing people into this area around. And it sounds, I just want to, give you a chance to clarify, we're not bringing people in from around the region, right? This is going to be a local community sort of asset? Because I heard a couple times that we're bringing people will want to drive to this project. So I just want to clarify, get you a chance to clarify that on the record.
I would say the existing tournaments and things that go on at the park definitely do serve people from outside of our area. Soccer tournaments, baseball tournaments. To a lesser degree, I think there's some people from outside our area that visit our dog parks. I can share with you, we did a very intense study of Lagoon Valley Park, which showed that 40% of the people using Lagoon Valley Park are not Vacaville residents. I anticipate there will be people coming to Centennial Park already and in the future for some of the activities that go on out here. I mentioned
But just to clarify, we're not inducing traffic to this project, right?
Inducing?
At operation, what is it? Because the community was concerned about traffic. So let's give a very strict, clear answer about what we expect with traffic.
So traffic associated with the park expansion is what you will normally find for community parks. This was probably best analyzed back when the city did the 2015 general plan update. There was an environmental impact report that was prepared for that. And as part of that environmental impact report, it was disclosed and it was identified that 276 acres approximately would be the development extent of what Centennial Park would look like. Subsequent environmental documents were also prepared for VMT in 2021 that disclosed what does it look like if the city does get to a point where it builds out its facilities. And so many of the impacts associated with traffic and transportation with the build out of this project were previously disclosed in a lot of those, in those particular documents. And they're further reiterated in this initial study and mitigated negative declaration. So they have been analyzed in great detail. The second thing that—
Can I just, because I'm just in clear terms, is this going to induce traffic to this project if people who live there aren't going to be using the project?
If you might define what you're intending to be explaining by when you say induce, because—
Okay, so who is this for in the community if nobody in the community wants to use the park?
Yeah, so that gets back to our park standards. It's looking, we primarily serve the residents of Vacaville. We ask them for their opinion, we ask them for their thoughts, and then we involve them in the actual literal design. But along the way, there are people we know that will use our facilities from outside our community. Some of them are invited to special events, certainly Creek Walk and other things like that, where people, we anticipate, we want people to come. We want Vacaville to be a hub of activity.
So I live in District 1, and these are my neighbors. What troubles me about this is that they don't like the project. And what happens in a development like this, that I promise you is going to happen, there will be mice. When you bring in all this dirt, mice are going to find you're taking their homes away. And I didn't see anywhere in the EIR. I was searching the EIR to figure out what about all of these rodents that are gonna, you're displacing their home, they're not endangered species, they're pests, and it's gonna end up in someone's garage, and then the snakes are gonna follow from that. And that's an impact that I feel like if you're bringing in 2.4 million cubic yards of dirt, that's problematic, okay? And the other thing is that traffic, I think, is going to be a nightmare for these people. You're talking about 51 truck trips per day for 3 to 6 years. I mean, that's going to really wreck their morning commute, their afternoon commute. What is the plan for, the traffic management of, construction? And how are you involved in the community and making sure that they're aware that there's going to be gridlock at certain times of the day? These are established homes compared to where I live. And I don't know that that's what the benefit of their bargain when they bought their homes, whenever it was, that they would end up with a project like this. Well, the wrought iron fence, our neighbors were talking about that. That's not what they want. to have rodents in their backyard, as well as 51 truck trips per day for 3 to 6 years. And this project might be drawn out even further. I mean, 3 to 6 years, I think, is optimistic. I saw somewhere else in the EIR, or excuse me, the ISMND, that put the truck trips at different, different estimations depending on the phase. So it's just, this is a 500-page document, and it's difficult for me. I'm an environmental attorney. It's hard for me to understand what we're talking about in terms of the phases of the trip, or the phases of development, and what the truckloads are going to be. And what these documents don't capture is your quality of life. We've heard that a couple of times. Quality of life will deteriorate for that point of this community asset. I think it's a great idea. I just don't know that for what I've heard, I'm not comfortable with the impacts to the quality of life. And I know that we want to be consistent with, CEQA and the zoning and the general plan. But I mean, I think there's a lot in here that would give me pause, particularly around traffic. And I don't know that we think seriously about the impact of all of these mice and snakes and all of this stuff that's going to be, wind up in someone's garage. Because I live in one, it happens to me every time they're building near my home. So, those are my chief concerns. So I'm going to pause there and let you react.
I'll try to address those concerns. Regarding the truck traffic, there is a traffic management plan that's associated with the grading permit. The trucks will stay on the interstate. Most of them will come off at Vacaville interchange and come down Allison Parkway to enter to the bikes park site. So, and those will only be during standard construction hours. So if you mentioned the concern for, the rush hour traffic.
Can I just ask, so Vacaville Parkway, that's like through Kaiser, like that road that runs up from Kaiser?
East and west, yeah.
So they're getting off the freeway at Kaiser?
Yeah, Vacaville Parkway.
And so that's a 2-lane road a lot of the way. They're gonna get off at Kaiser and drive all the way to the project through Allison. And can you just remind me of the time of day that's gonna happen?
I think our standard construction hours are 7 a.m. or is it 8? Do you know?
Yeah, the construction starting at 7. I would like to add, for the sake of the context, is that we did have our professional traffic engineers take a look at the delivery routes. There's no claim that they found that it would result in gridlock as a result of
Albert, but you have that, it's a 2-lane bridge right now, right next to Genentech. And right now, traffic is already pretty bad if there's an accident or anything like that. I drop my kids off at school every morning, and I'll tell you that at 7 a.m., it's a nightmare, especially near Markham. It's a traffic nightmare. The backup from Markham at Centennial all the way down to my gym over there in Shape, that is a hard road to travel on right now at 7 a.m. I'm just making sure that you're aware. So I just think that realistically, I don't know that realistically, it doesn't feel like the impacts would be less than significant on traffic at 7 a.m. on that road.
You won't see any of the trucks on Browns Valley Parkway at all.
I thought that you just said that it goes from Vacaville Parkway.
Vacaville is how far? Probably a half a mile north of the park, and goes east and west across the northern part of the city. So, yeah, we don't have our map. Isn't even big enough to show that.
I'm sorry, I thought you said Vacaville Parkway.
Vacaville Parkway.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it connects to Browns Valley, right?
Right, but they will be turning off at Allison Parkway.
But I think that the secondary impacts will hit Browns Valley Parkway. How would they not?
I don't know.
I think for the sake of the commission, our job as part of the process of development applications is to provide a clear analysis that shows compliance with the general plan, compliance with the zoning ordinance, as well as compliance with environmental law. Our job isn't to argue with the opinions of the public or the commission. Our job is to provide evidence as part of the record to help establish a public record that is enough of evidence that can be considered by the commission. So while I can understand that there's a lot of concerns that are being expressed, we have presented our pieces of information as part of land use entitlements, our environmental review. You've also heard from public testimony. And so I believe we're in the process of deliberations right now among the commission. So I felt like that was probably helpful to provide a context for the commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Klein. Okay. Oh, Commissioner Beaumont.
Yeah, let me just give my opinion right now of what I think. And I think that this is going to take 20 plus years plus to develop because of funding questionable. I represent all of Vacaville, not just Browns Valley. I probably won't be around to see this completed, but my kids and grandkids will. And so in that respect, I'm going to go ahead and vote yes on this project. Thank you.
Have all commissioners been able to speak? Okay. This is a community park. I understand the concerns of the neighbors living nearby, but there's 100-something thousand people in Vacaville. This is a community park, not a neighborhood park. This has also been in the works for many, many years. Actually, can we please bring up, was it slide 3 that shows the timeline? This initially, now granted back in 1978, when the EIR was prepared for Browns Valley area, it wasn't looking at this built-out project. But this has been in the sights for the city to be a community park for some time. This has a lot of benefit. Okay, so addressing the traffic part without beating that anymore. There is currently soccer fields and baseball fields there. Improving the soccer fields and baseball fields in the future, because that is a phase that is further down the road. And it's been stated very clearly that there is not funding for any of this. So we're not going to have a bunch of backhoes out there tomorrow if we approve this. Improving fields we currently have now for our children and our children's children, that is a benefit for the community. Looking at the map, the part that borders the majority of the neighborhoods will be open space. And I'm glad it got brought up about the motorcycle. There's no motorcycles. Pump tracks, in a former life, I used to mountain bike a long time ago, and which is not pump tracks, but pump tracks are great for children. It's in a confined area, and that will be a huge benefit to the larger community of Vacaville. But I think we've clarified that there still will be a lot of open space. And trust me, I completely understand the concerns with noise. I've lived in an area that had a large park that had a lot of parties. But I think also building out this area with having, expanding the trails that we currently have there, adding the pump track, which is elevated, I think that might curb some of the trucks, people with their, regular trucks driving around there. Also, the city of Vacaville has an extensive bike trail. Albert, will our current bike trail connect to this, or Mr. Hugh, will our current bike trail, does it connect to this?
Yes, so there are bike trails on Allison Parkway coming down from the north. There's 3 separate combination bikeways and pedestrian access points from the Browns Valley neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And then there's obviously access coming off of Browns Valley itself.
Now we have connectivity to this as well. Now there may be more cars because I live out in District 6 and my knees don't hold up like they used to. So no, I'm not going to ride my bike all the way out from District 6 where I live. And I might have to throw my kids' bikes in the back of my truck. So there could be local traffic that might increase, but again, as Commissioner Beaumont said, this could take 20, 30 years to build out. And there will be plenty of opportunity for the community to, speak about as the phases go through. So with that said, I fully support this. And do we have a motion? Okay. Commissioner Klein.
One question I forgot to ask is about the dirt. Is there a way for the dirt to know where it's coming from? I am a tenant. It'd be nice if we could just source it locally. Is that a condition that we can look at, local sourcing of the dirt?
You could. I'm not sure if that's the purview of this commission, but the intention would be, and again, what do you call local? The longer, I would recommend against that, because the economies are that the faster you get the dirt in, the sooner you get your final product. But it's to the advantage of the entity building it, Landify, to use dirt that's local if it's available. If it's not local, you may have to go a little further out.
I just have one more question, sorry, just for clarity. So we're talking about the community park and the regional park are different sizes. A community park is from 12 to 60 acres, and this currently sits at 53.4 acres. If it expands, is it still going to be considered a community park, or is it turning into a regional park?
Yeah, good question. I didn't clarify that. Within the community park category in our general plan, this is Centennial Park is an exception to the size. Okay. So it is 276 acres, which is larger than our other community parks. Okay. But remember that it was previously called a city park.
Right.
And so we had to put it into either the regional park category, which, by the way, is intended to serve people in our entire region, meaning much beyond Vacaville. We thought it was much more appropriate to put it into the community park category, and that was how the
And so with
council approved
developing it larger than what it is that going to change?
No.
Won't change anything.
No, it'll just remain an exception to the community park acreage. We have lots of exceptions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, Vice Chair Lightfoot.
So just one note that I had written down from public comment was in regards to existing homeowners and any taxes or assessments. So just confirm for us that no tax assessment is going to be put onto any existing homeowner, that the taxes that you're speaking about were for new development.
Yeah, good question. So the existing current homeowners will not be taxed additionally for this. Obviously, the Landify portion of the project will have no city funds going into it for development. That's actually a requirement. If at some point the city were to say, hey, we really want to improve one particular area, a general measure could be passed, like was done back in 1992, to build the baseball fields. Our VPAT was built with special measure monies. The people could vote for something like that if they wanted to, but nothing will be forced on them in terms of your lighting and landscaping district won't be impacted by that. The park impact fees are only paid once. That's when a home is permitted. So we are searching for grant monies and other creative ways to construct these parks, these areas.
I think it was when the term impact fee was brought up, park impact fee, and people not understanding how that works. And that would be for future building and future parks, homes that have not been built yet. So it would be impact fees from those, not anything added to the current.
Right.
Do we have anybody who would like to make a motion? Commissioner Beaumont?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, adopt the resolution of the City of Vacaville Planning Commission adopting the initial study, mitigated negative declaration, and approving the Centennial Park Master Plan located at 501 Browns Valley Road with the following APNs as listed.
Do I have a second? Second? I'll second. Nancy, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Klein,
No.
Vargas,
No.
Banta,
No.
Beaumont.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lightfoot,
Yes.
Chair Rudine.
Yes.
We have a tie.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick recess. And we're back. Okay, I'm going to pass this over to City Attorney Nancy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being patient with us. This is a very unique situation for us as well. So just to give everyone a little context, a 3-3 vote is, the motion does not pass as of right now, but the commission does have a couple of options. They can leave the motion as is and it does not move forward, but they can also forgive me. They can also make a motion to reconsider once they are fully staffed, because as you notice, there is an empty seat. So they can make a motion to reconsider this item once they have a full commission, and I believe in a couple of weeks, they will be fully staffed to reconsider the item, to bring it back with more information, or they can leave the item as is. So the council does have a couple of options as is, but as of right now, a 3-3 vote does not pass the item.
Okay, so this is new territory. Do I ask?
Can we talk about it?
Yeah, so do we discuss this on our end if we want to make a motion, or do I just say, do we want to make a motion?
You can deliberate if you want.
Okay, okay.
Madam Chair, are we able to table this, or was that the same effect of leaving it as is?
What do you mean by tabling?
Could we table this item to a different meeting, or is that the same thing as leaving it?
Like a continuance?
Yeah.
What purpose?
You can continue it to a further date.
Could we ask staff to go and maybe bring it back and work on some of the concerns that we heard from the community tonight, or?
Well, that is a motion to reconsider the item with additional information. Okay. So if one of you decide to do that, it would be a secondary motion.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. So that would be have city staff bring back more information, and then also at a time when we are fully staffed here on the commission.
Correct. So we would make the announcement that the 3-3 vote does not pass the item, but then you would entertain a second motion of, I would consider a second motion to, reconsider this item once we are fully staffed, and have staff bring additional information to, support the item with whatever information the commission feels they need more information on.
Okay, I hope I'm going to remember that verbiage. Commissioner Beaumont.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we reconsider when we're fully staffed and that we get more information from staff, and then we can deliberate again.
Okay, but I got to do my part first, where I explain that it was a split 3-3 vote. The motion does not pass, and I will entertain a motion to reconsider. Did I get it right?
Correct.
Thank you. So does Commissioner Beaumont's motion count?
Yes, and now we need a second.
Can I make an amendment? So,
yes, he can amend.
Thank you. So what I'd like to, in your motion, if we could poll the commission on items that they want back, specific items that are pertaining to the item that we need more clarity on. Whether I heard things about traffic plans, I've heard things about park size versus. So if we can note in the motion the items that we definitely want to have more information on when we are fully staffed.
Actually, before we go forward with that, can any of the commissioners make this motion, or does it need to be from a no voter?
I would recommend from someone who made the no vote.
So from one of the commissioners who made a no vote, do we have a motion to reconsider?
I'd make a motion to reconsider at a later date with a fully staffed commission and more information from the staff to reconsider. With the amendment of specific points that we want to be reconsidered.
Correct. Including,
do we need to list those in the motion? Including traffic considerations, wildlife considerations, phased approach, and
I also heard about crime and safety.
Crime and safety. and clarity of the general plan and the community park versus a regional park meeting the general plan.
Distinguishing.
Distinguishing between a regional park and the community park.
I second that.
That was quite the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion made by Commissioner Banton, a second by Commissioner Klein. Nancy, can we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Klein,
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas,
Yes.
Commissioner Banta,
Yes.
Commissioner Beaumont,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lightfoot,
Yes.
Chair Rudine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So this will come back at a future date. Okay. Give a minute for crowd to leave. Thank you guys for staff report and presentation. So we will be moving on to our next public hearing this evening, which is to receive a presentation on North Village Area Plan 2. We will first hear a presentation by staff, followed by commissioner questions, and then we will open it up for public comment. May we please have staff's presentation? Oh,
Excuse me.
wait, before we do that, sorry, I wasn't here.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Rudine. So tonight, to avoid any potential conflict of interest, I am recusing myself from participating in any way in Agenda Item 7B regarding the North Village Area Plan 2 because my residence is located in the area close to the project. Therefore, I will leave the meeting until, actually, I'm going to leave the meeting. And even though it pains me greatly to miss the monthly report from the director, that's the sacrifice I'll have to pay.
You'll be watching on channel
So
26.
you can tune in on YouTube.
I will absolutely tune in on YouTube. And thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein. Have a good evening.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is North Village Area Plan 2. Specifically, this is a request from Legacy Builders Incorporated and North Village Development Incorporated. They're requesting to modify the North Village Master Plan development, which is located south of Midway Road and east of Interstate 505. This map shows the extent boundary of North Village as it was approved in 1995. Well, we will note as we're going through the history that one small thing that we want to make clear, abundantly clear as part of this project is that there is a 10-acre parcel that is being excluded from this project now. It is owned by a separate property owner. And so the project was resubmitted. I'll go through the timeline and the sequencing for how we got to yet another meeting to discuss the particular project. But wanted to outright say that this 10-acre parcel is not included in the proposal for tonight's meeting. North Village is a master plan development community. It was originally approved in 1995 with a specific plan. It's comprised of 880 acres, 2 planning areas for a total of 2499 units that are both single-family and multifamily development. And it includes commercial components, business park, public college, private or public school, private swim club, as well as public parks and various amounts of public open space. This is the plan as it was approved in 1995, and largely Area Plan 1 to the south. I'll go into greater detail on that, has been developed. The northern portion that is north of that blue line in the center of it, which is Gibson Canyon Creek, that northern portion is the area for tonight's discussion. Again, we're wanting to highlight that 10-acre parcel is not included in proposal tonight. So North Village has 2 planning areas. The first is almost built out, 1,348 units, single family and both multifamily. Commercial, business park, open space. There is a public park out there, Corderos Park, as well as What was previously approved in 95 was a public school, but that is a part of the subject of tonight's meeting, and that is a request to move that over into Area Plan 2, which is comprised of 1151 units in single-family and multifamily development with open space, a public park. What was originally slated was a private swim club in that area. These are how the area plans are diced up into two areas. Area Plan 1, you'll see on the aerial image that it's almost built out if you go out there now. And then Area Plan 2 in purple is the area for tonight's discussion. Again, highlighting the area in red is 10 acres, not included with the project. So this is not the first time that the Planning Commission has heard this item. It's been ongoing since 2019. And so the most recent information that we felt that was helpful for the context of this discussion occurred in July of last year, in which the Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider this project, and that was eventually recommended for approval to the City Council with the 601 recommended approval. And that same meeting, Chair Klein at the time also recused himself at that meeting. From that point last July, it moved on to a city council meeting in August, and we held a public hearing for that one. And eventually the item was continued to an eventual meeting that was hopeful to be done in September, because there were a number of issues that needed to be discussed that were expressed by the city council, including the length of the development agreement term that is being requested for an extension, the school site, the timing for constructing the apartments, as well as the timing for constructing a public park. And that was a list that was given to the applicant to address. But eventually, when we were getting ready for a September City Council recurrence, the project was continued indefinitely due to issues that were outside of our control. So it was tabled for a while until it was resubmitted by Legacy Builders and North Village Development Incorporated in June of this year. And so this was largely to address many of the concerns that City Council had expressed at that August meeting last year, as well as showing that there's no longer a 10-acre site included with this project. So here's the recap of what the project description is to modify that original master plan development for North Village. And that can be summarized into 6 items. They're looking to change the general plan mapping designation as well as the zoning map districts to reflect a new land use plan on how they want to lay out Area Plan 2. They're hoping to reserve not an 11-acre school site, but now a 20-acre school site in Area Plan 2 for Vacaville Unified School District. They are requesting to extend the development agreement not by 20 years, which was the original request, but now by 15 years ending until 2040. The request is still the same, to increase the overall unit count from 2499 to 2599. There's a bunch of other exhibit changes that need to be done to the North Village specific plan in order to be able to reflect and update everything to match that land use plan. And then the last item that the applicant is hoping to obtain is approval of a vesting tentative map that shows the splitting of all that land up. So here's some more information on the changes to the project. Really, what was originally approved for Area Plan 1 was 1,151 units, and they were requesting to up that by an additional 100 units. But the way that everything was sliced and diced in the eventual resubmittal of that vesting tentative map ends up counting for 1,146, so just shy of what was originally planned in that area, because there's 20 acres that's being set aside for a school site, which we'll get in a little bit more detail. A recap of what other aspects were also included is accessory dwelling units. There's a commitment of constructing 100 of those in Area Plan 2. Parkland is going to be provided for 8.1 acres, a large amount of open space, largely between Area Plan 1 and Area Plan 2, and also along Gibson Canyon Creek and the freeway, with some separate roadways and basins in the area. And then the last part is that school site of 20 acres. So that's the project description as a whole. So now we get into the response to council comments and the direction and how do they address that. And so I'll loosely describe what the issue was and how the applicant is now proposing their project to address that. And this is described in greater detail in our staff report. Council had concerns about the length of time that was being requested for the development agreement of 20 years. They felt that it was a little excessive, and they wanted to see development occur at a a faster pace. And so one of the questions that had been posed by council is whether or not the applicant would be interested in reducing that down to 15 years. So the applicant has taken a look at that. Their new request reduces that from 20 years to 15 years to build out Area Plan 2. The school site, there was some uncertainty about development of the school site, and I will note that we do have representatives from the Vacaville Unified School District to help answer any clarifying questions from the commission tonight. But one of the things that occurred at the end of last year till now was that the applicant worked with VUSD on what was really needed by the Vacaville Unified School District to satisfy school needs. And so our VUSD representatives are here to probably expand upon what their plan and vision is, but for the purposes of a land plan, the amount of acreage that's going to be dedicated for public school land would be increasing from 11 acres to 20 acres, not for a middle school, not for an elementary school, but for a middle school instead. The applicant took a look at the timing for constructing the apartments, whether they could be done earlier in that process, and largely what they are reiterating is that the timing for constructing the apartments should be based off of market demand when they can do that. And they pointed to their experiences and with their current apartment project that's in Area Plan 1. The villas at North Village that they built that one, that they're also maintaining that one right now. So they requested that that be controlled by the market demand on that one. And then timing for constructing the public park, we'll note that the current development agreement that was negotiated with the applicant is to start the construction of that park at 50% build out. A lot of the parks that we surveyed to see what was the city's experience with building parks and getting parks built. And what we found was a lot of those parks were getting built and completed near 75 to 80% of the build out of that residential development that locally neighborhood park would be serving. So we're fixing that. We're trying to get parks built earlier in that process. Now, we'll note that the current development agreement obligates the developer to build the entire neighborhood park as well as the dog park to start construction at 50% to start construction at 50% of build out and then to complete that within 1 year. There are sticks in place, not issuing any more residential building permits if those things are not met as part of the development agreement would be one of those sticks for reference. So those are their responses, but there were some other things that we wanted to bring to the commission's attention as part of changing times, what has been occurring as part of that downtime from September till now. And so those are some of the other topics that we identified in our staff report. One of the other topics of interest was the swim club going to get developed that was originally slated for Area Plan 2, and the developer is looking to place that over in Area Plan 1. There is a conceptual business park land use plan that was submitted with the June submittal that shows the developer's efforts to outline the location of the swim club and then also to design that business park land use plan. And they're also here to help elaborate further on what their intent is on developing that business plan, that business park area. But from what we could gather about it is that the formal application for that business park plan would be submitted sometime in 2025. And then referencing what's also required within our conditions of approval is that the swim club obligations for being able to survey the canvas the residents that are currently out there to see, is there enough interest in having a swim club? There are current triggers within the conditions of approval that would obligate the developer to start initially reaching out to residents to find out, is there any interest in actually having a swim club out there within 180 days of approval? And then they have to do even more effort to reach that out and set up that process if there is interest with an HOA to find out how that's all going to be managed prior to recordation of the first final map. So there are some triggers in there that I wanted to hit on, but the next slide will show what was submitted to us. That is not part of the action for tonight, but it does provide context as the developer is trying to move forward with other aspects of the project also. And then I mentioned about the 100 accessory dwelling units or junior accessory dwelling units. There is a provision built into the project that would require the developer to identify and construct 100 accessory dwelling units or junior accessory dwelling units that would be restricted to affordable income levels. So they're committing to providing that kind of provision for Area Plan 2. So the business park plan that was submitted to us, this is what it looks like. And so this business park is in Area Plan 1, and it's not the subject of tonight's item, but it was contextual information because it was something that had been at the forefront of discussions that have occurred at Planning Commission meetings as well as the City Council meeting. And the question is largely, what guarantee is there that it's going to get built, and how do we know that there's going to be areas for the swim club? And so what we'll find as part of this map that was provided to us that would still require subsequent review is there is a swim club that's being proposed that could be located towards the top of the map. It shows a couple of different pools with some additional buildings. And towards the middle of it, you'll see some additional recreational space that wouldn't be parkland, but it'd be part of this overall business park area. Tons of flex space, office space that's in the middle. There's a self-storage facility that's tucked away behind the conservation area land. And then there's, a couple other identifying things. So really, this was just intended to provide some context for the commission in case they had any questions about the developer's progress to try and design this area plan. But it identifies a grocery store as well as a couple of other amenities and some restaurants. As what's required for us is determining whether or not these components of the project are compliant with the general plan and zoning ordinance. So there have been multiple staff reports that have illustrated how the proposed changes would be compliant with the general plan, but because again, it's in front of the commission tonight, again, we want to make sure that we're at least touching on some of those things. And so there are a few general plan policies that show evidence that it would comply with the general plan as we were reviewing it. It's listed in greater detail in the finding of facts as part of the subject resolutions and the subject ordinance. You can read in greater detail of all the particular policies that are applicable when we're evaluating the project. But here's just a few, how the project, it would provide new parks and safe street frontages for those parks. Park would be abutting a future school site. It would promote walkability between the school apartments and the park area. It also provides a school site in Area Plan 2 through the modification. There's a number of entitlements that have to be evaluated for compliance with the zoning ordinance. Those are all the ones that are identified in there. And what we found, and was also identified in previous staff reports that were included as an attachment to this report through links, hopefully all of those worked, was by and large that the general plan, zoning map, and specific plan amendments, as well as the development agreement, they met all the required findings and complied with city standards. The vesting tentative map does include a couple of different exceptions to city standards for lot sizes, street layouts, but those have been reviewed by city staff, and those proposed exceptions don't produce any questionable scenarios or any unsafe conditions that would be risk. It's more of a how do you get the best design and what are some changes that need to be done for that plan. So when we were reviewing the vesting tentative map, we were able to find that it by and large did comply with a lot of the development standards that would be applicable to it, with a few different exceptions. Revisiting the environmental assessment, there was an environmental impact report that was certified with the original approval in 1995. So our job is to evaluate, in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, whether or not the changes that are created by this modification would produce any new impacts that needed to be disclosed to the public. And so when we went down that pathway, we found that there are incremental changes. There's an increase in 100 units that the applicant is requesting from 2499 to 2599. But there was also a decrease in the amount of land that would be dedicated for business park land uses because of previously negotiated conservation easements and areas that had to be deployed across the project as a result of negotiations between the developer and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And so with the loss of the business park and the increase of the units, it ended up being a net wash in impacts. And that, there's plenty of documentation that evaluates what the incremental changes look like. And so our analysis in comparison, what we found as part of that is that the addendum demonstrates that there aren't going to be any new impacts produced by this project with those changes as compared to the 1995 environmental impact report. Recounting the public outreach that we've done, previous public hearings, the status of the process that we've done for that is to publish advertisements in the newspaper about those public hearings or neighborhood meetings, to mail public notices using a 1,000-foot radius around the project boundary, and then also to install signage and on-site signage for the project. We did the same thing for this Planning Commission meeting. We did get a comment from the owner of the 10-acre parcel, which is Discovery Builders Incorporated. They, as part of the letter that was provided in the correspondence and communications, that there were, in summary, the claims were that the new environmental impact report was needed. So we took a look at that briefly today, and we looked at a lot of the claims, and we found that in talking with our environmental consultant, the current addendum does address the incremental change that's required underneath the California Environmental Quality Act. We also took a look at it from a city attorney perspective, and the city believes that the current addendum that was prepared for the project adequately discloses the potential changes created by this project and is compliant, fully compliant with the California Environmental Quality Act. In conclusion, staff supports this mainly because it meets the required findings. It would comply with general plan policies. It's consistent with airport compatibility plans. It would provide a middle school for VUSD. It provides a turnkey park and a variety of different housing types. So that concludes our presentation. There's a recommendation that's on the screen for the commission should you choose to take an action on this project. It is a recommendation to City Council that you'll be making for tonight. I'm here to answer any questions. We also have VUSD representatives that are here to provide additional context about what their plans are for a school in this area. Applicant's also here with his team to provide additional context about their project, if there's any clarifying questions or any questions about the business park area.
Great, thank you. Before we start commissioner questions, I would like to ask the commission for ex parte disclosures.
I need to disclose an ex parte disclosure with the project developer. Okay. The applicant, but I've learned nothing new that wasn't disclosed in staff's report.
I text with Doug Chen also, so.
Yeah, I'd like to comment that I've not been in any communication with the builder about this project.
Same for me. I have not been in communication with the applicant on this. Okay, so with that, do we have any commissioner questions? Commissioner Beaumont.
Yeah, I have a few. Let's see, the school site, since superintendent's here, I'm going to ask you a question. I know that this says that the school is proposed for North Village, but I've heard you say that the McMurtry site might be better suited for the mid-school. Do you have any statement on that or how that would work?
Superintendent with the Vacaville Unified School District. We've looked, so we own some land at McMurtry, and we have looked at that, and we have looked at the North Village site, and our board has unanimously said that the North Village site is our #1 choice for a variety of reasons. Where the McMurtry is, getting in and out is trickier. The site work that would be needed would be significantly more. And really just the history of North Village and having a school out there has been an important thing for this community. And if we can do that as well, we would want to do that. So it is our #1 choice.
Great, thank you. Another question I had, not for you, thank you, is that development agreement amendment says that the park will be built prior to 50% build out. Is that correct?
Construction has to start at 50% build out. So there's a lot of work that has to occur with the design of the parks master plan for that neighborhood park that would have to go to be for the Parks and Recreation Commission. So there's going to be no delay in time in how that's going to have to occur with Parks and Recreation team. But construction would have to occur at 50% build out, and then it would have to be completed within 1 year.
Okay, inclusionary housing, I congratulate you on that, but the people who buy that, what if they have in-laws or something like that that they want to just move in?
That's even better because inclusionary housing looks at the idea of if you're renting an ADU, you have to rent it at 80% of their immediate income. If you have family, that means that they're renting that for possibly nothing because they are family.
Okay, and another question with the swim club. Are the apartment people or the people in the duets, are they going to be available to join the swim club, or is it just HOA people that are actual owners?
I think it might be a good idea to have the applicant talk about their efforts to set up HOAs because they've done it before. But North Village, the intent is for it to be an HOA where everybody would be seeking interest as part of being
The apartment
members.
people don't pay into the HOA.
You know, that's a good question. I don't know if they will have their own amenities, just like the villas at North Village do. So I don't know. That's a very good detail.
Okay, that was just a question. Thank you. I think that's all of them. Thank you.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yeah, I think for Commissioner Beaumont, the question about the private swim club, given the fact that we had correspondence from some folks about some concerns of not having access because it's private. And I think some of the feedback received was they'd be willing to pay for access to that. So just wanted to throw that out there. I know we've been slapped on the head before about talking about schools not really in our purview, given, I think this is from the Vanden project. However, nice to see that there is going to be a school. I don't know when's the last time Vacaville built a school, probably been a long time. So I'm certainly happy to see that. So there's a proposed park, correct, in the project. I think one of the questions is do we know what's going in that park? I don't know if that was discussed, basketball courts. I don't know if there's a layout. I couldn't recall seeing that in the report.
You know, I'd like to call on our senior park planner, Nemo Gonzalez, to help provide some context of what amenities would be needed for that.
Evening, Commission. Good to see you all. Yeah, so the provisions that we have in the development agreement obligates a developer to enter into a improvement agreement with us where we're going to define all of the amenities, but and you know, my Hugh Hesterman, who's the other senior park planner for the city, had indicated before in the previous presentation that when the council adopted the Park and Rec Master Plan, we had new categories for parks that were aligned with the general plan. And what the Park and Rec Master Plan does is it itemizes the appropriate amenities that are supposed to be in every single park per category. So something that might be appropriate for a neighborhood park, like the park that's being proposed at AP2, might not be appropriate for Centennial Park. So we pluck the amenities that were approved by council in the Park and Rec Master Plan, and then we plug them into these neighborhood parks. In terms of what is going to be in the park, that's within the purview of the Park and Rec Commission to evaluate and approve that it's consistent with that document. But it's all listed out in the Park and Rec Master Plan. So it's things like a hardcore surface, a loop trail, picnic shelter and picnic tables, benches, a flat fairway, et cetera. So things that don't necessarily require somebody to drive to the park, but rather to service a half a mile radius. So for folks who live near and around the park to be able to recreate on a daily basis.
No, that answers it. Thank you very much. And I do want to recognize Doug Chen's email. I appreciate that. Very thorough, detailed. Speaking of the parks, the 1.3 million in subsidies, given that the impact fees won't cover. So thank you for that information. That's all the questions I have.
Do we have any other commissioner questions? I have a question for the applicant. Thank you. My question is, with regards to reaching out to the public regarding the HOA for the swim club, do you guys have a plan for your methodology to reaching out? Because a lot of times we hear, well, we didn't know about this. We didn't hear about this. So what is your guys' plan for that?
So thank you, Chair Reding and commissioners. This is my third time back with AP2. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm glad you're taking the time to consider this project. So with the outreach, it's the same process that we have done already with the mailing notices. We go through our title company who prints out the listing of everyone within North Village and everyone within the, well, in this case, wouldn't be applicable for the swim club, just with everyone within North Village. But in the notification process for this hearing, it was everyone within North Village plus a 1,000-foot radius. So there's our title company is great at doing that. They go through the assessor's map and they determine who lives where. Absentee owners, renters, they all get notification.
Okay, great.
So we will get a master HOA on board and go through that process and reach out to the homeowners, not only the homeowners, renters. And there's a question about membership. So this will be a membership club. So within the master HOA, you have a master assessment, and there will be a separate cost center for those who want to join the swim club. There'll be an additional cost for the swim club. So apartment owners, apartment renters, they could join the swim club if they want. Although just within our apartment complex, very typically we'll have a swimming pool just for the renters themselves.
Great, thank you for addressing that, because I think some of the concern was, people were like, well, why do I want to pay for an HOA or for a swim club if I don't plan on using it? So thank you for addressing that. And that actually was the only question I had.
There was a question on the park in attachment 8 to the staff report. It shows you a conceptual park master plan. The planned facilities, that's subject to change, of course.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Lightfoot.
So it's piggybacking on the swim club, and just clarification. So is it intention also to be open to the public outside of the HOA or the building area, or is this, just solely on members within AP1 or AP2?
So I think that's going to be determined on our outreach. The folks within North Village, are they willing to open it up to people beyond North Village?
So the outreach is by the surrounding homeowners is going to determine whether or not it would be open to the public or not.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I should clarify. The outreach for the swim club is strictly with the residents within North Village.
Okay, and then, but is the intention to open it up to the general public outside of North Village?
I think that'll be part of our outreach, the question. Now, whether residents within North Village, do they want to make the swim club a club that's just open to everyone else as long as they're a member?
I'd encourage to poll that question particularly. I would understand if you're limiting it to 2,500 homes or plus, you said 1,000 feet outside, correct? I don't know what that reach might be, but speaking to our Parks and Rec department or getting a sense of what the general community might like or in that area for a swim club would be beneficial to the community as a whole.
Of course, I'll make a note of that.
Commissioner Beaumont.
Yeah, Mr. Chen, I just wondered how parking has been addressed for the ADUs and the JADUs in the neighborhoods.
So in the typical house that we have, you have two-car garage, parking space in the driveway, so that's 4 parking spaces. And we would of course follow the parking requirement that the city has if there's any parking requirement established for a JADU.
For the residential lots that were shown, was that the circle with the line in it or something? How was that signified, or are they signified?
Well, the JADUs and are you talking about the floor plan of the house?
No, not the floor plan, just how where the lots are that are going to have the ADU or JADU. Are they shown on the map?
No, not right now. That's part of the process we'll go through when we go through the design review process for the house products that we'll have. which product can accommodate a JADU. Basically, those will be any product with a downstairs master bedroom, because those can be converted into a JADU fairly easily.
ADUs would be on your larger lots?
It would be typically on the larger lots, yes.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other commissioner questions before I open up public comment? Okay, with that, I'm going to open up public comment. If you have any questions, please come up to the podium.
So, Commissioners, I did have a question about the school that was proposed. I'm a member of the North Village community, and when it was sold to me, it's like, hey, they already postponed the building of that home for a couple times of that school. It should be coming soon because first phase is completed. So now I'm hearing like a 15-year extension. I'm just wondering, like, now I had to like drive to Markham to drop off my kid. Actually missing dinner with now. So, you know, like with the traffic situation over the bridge, with that two-way lane over there, Markham being kind of farther away from North Village, I was expecting the elementary school to be started fairly soon. That was kind of my question, why are we extending and are considering like all the people in North Village being assigned to the Markham School District? Don't even go to the Browns Valley Elementary School by the way that the like distributor or whatever it is assignments for the school. But it's a drive a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you. That's not really in our purview. Or is staff able to, I want to bring that over to you guys.
I mean, since VUSD is here, they can take notes of the comment, but since we have been talking about it, it's an okay comment to take note of.
Okay. Do we want to invite, are we able to invite VUSD yet?
Yeah, I mean, if they have a response to that, it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Do I need to close public comment first? Nancy, I'm sorry, do I need to close public comment first? Or is it okay for the school district to come up now?
He can answer the question.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course, our building a school will be contingent upon passing of a bond in 3 weeks from tonight, Measure E, because schools are super expensive. And if I could just take a minute to explain why we're doing a middle school. And really that's because, and it's going to sound weird at first, it's because our elementary schools are really impacted. We've been growing over the last several years, all the good growth in the city and things. So we have several elementary schools that are impacted. So we're planning to build a middle school and then change all 3 of our middle schools into 6th through 8th grade instead of 7 and 8 only. We'll be the last district in Solano County to go to that model. And from the education side, I love it. So that will then free up 3 to 5 classrooms in every elementary school. So that's sort of the reason for it and the plan why it's a middle school. And then in terms of the time frame, this would be one of the first projects out of the gate if the bond passes. So we're hoping to have that completed and done within 5 years and started then. Does that answer?
I think so. Yes,
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment or questions? Okay, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission for deliberation. Council member or commissioner members, commissioners who would like to speak. Oh, okay, well, I will. You guys have come back and forth numerous times, and I really appreciate how you guys have listened and addressed the concerns of the public as well as the council and the commission. I would like to point out, my big thing, if anybody listens, is diversity in housing. We can't just be single family and high density, so I greatly appreciate addressing the missing middle and diversifying the housing types. including the ADUs and the JADUs. And also with that, having them, part of the inclusionary housing and having them affordable housing. I also appreciate that the park construction is going to be at 50% build out. The first home my husband and I bought was brand new construction, and they waited till the 11th hour to build the park. And we had our son was quite young at that time. So I appreciate that you guys have, worked together with that one. If there's no other commissioner comments, I'll entertain a motion. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Banta. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Vargas.
So I motion to adopt the subject resolutions for reaffirming North Village Project FEIR, General Plan Amendment, North Village Specific Plan Amendment, vesting tentative map, and introduce the subject ordinances for zoning map amendments and development agreement amendment.
And Nancy, can we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Vargas?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Beaumont?
Yes.
Vice Chair Lightfoot?
Yes.
Chair Rudine?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on our agenda. That was great. Great report. Thank you. I missed a step. There we go. Okay, I almost missed director's report. I'm so sorry.
I'll make this quick.
We will
Himala's
now
going to go to the
receive
next slide.
director's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Radine and Planning Commission. So since the commission last met, the council approved the general plan amendment initiation for the Roberts Ranch project. This is a proposal to convert the proposed school site to housing. So as you all know, approval of initiation is not approval of the project. It merely allows the applicant to file their formal applications, which have not come in yet. And then on September 24th, the council recognized National Community Planning Month. And if you watch the video, or if you'd like to watch it, the commission is referenced as part of, because you're very important in the community planning process. So feel important and feel recognized. Me and my staff do. We have a lot of future planning commission items, but coming before you in November, we'll be bringing you a very comprehensive update on new housing laws. So please drink some coffee if you need to, but there's a lot of change, even as recently as 2 months ago in state housing law. And we're going to bring you the best, the brightest, and some of the scary stuff, all of it. And then we have a bunch of pending items. I think early in the year, you can definitely expect an inclusionary housing study session, and then a bunch of other projects that will come to the commission as they are ready to. The building division, I've looked at the little screen here now because my eyes aren't that great, has been very busy. We have more than 700 homes under construction right now in Vacaville, right now at this moment in time, and there's more coming. Overall, building permit issued up slightly from a month before that was very busy. Single family permit issuance up a little bit, fees down, inspections a little bit down, but it has been an incredibly busy summer and fall in the building division. Let's go to the next slide. You can see there's that August spike. It's been, again, these are building inspections. We've had to augment our existing inspectors with contract inspectors. We've got lots of people out there with iPads doing inspections right now under the supervision of our chief building official. And as I said, we don't see it slowing down in the time ahead, unless it rains a lot.
And the building inspector they had didn't have a ladder, and so had to have the HVAC people that put in my stuff drop a ladder off so the guy could go up and look. I mean, that's pretty sad, I think.
We actually don't have ladders at all.
I
yeah,
I don't understand that, so, okay. Sorry.
Take it up with your HVAC guy. Sorry, Commissioner Beaumont.
No,
It is a standard.
Inspectors.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that feedback.
Anyway.
Building permit issuance is continuing to be strong. And we have about 400 houses on the cusp of being issued. That would bring our total under construction to around 1,100. And we have another set that's coming in. So it's been really busy. Lower Lagoon Valley, South Vacaville, East Vacaville. We've just seeing a lot of activity. Okay, let's keep going. Solar permits are steady and they're still trending with regular building permits. And we can go to the next slide because I want to keep moving. Payman, take it away with the current planning report.
Good evening, Commission. So as we've mentioned previously in previous reports, we talk about building permits and things like that. Generally, in most of the districts, we have plot plans being reviewed, Lower Lagoon Valley, Vanden Meadows, Montesa. So I'm not going to mention those, just going to mention sort of the notable projects that have come in. So for District 1, we received our first digital billboard application, Orion Outdoor Digital Billboard. We approved the Eubanks Court and Connie Lane amendments, which went to commission and went to council. In District 2, we approved, as the director mentioned, the initiation for Roberts Ranch. District 3 and District 4, we received a food truck application for 2 different locations. And then Fairmont Square, which was approved by Planning Commission a few years ago, they are in for a modification to modify the building for some site improvements, but also a longer drive-through queuing for Starbucks. So that's being reviewed right now. And then Lower Lagoon Valley, we approved house plans for neighborhood K2 and neighborhood C. And then, as I mentioned, Villages of Vanden, Unit 5 house plans as well. Advanced planning, there are a lot of stuff going on. So with housing element implementation, we actually did a pretty good job of implementing all the items that we were planning for 2024. We're looking forward to 2025, working with our staff on that. We held our 4th and last meeting of the year with the development community. And the last 2 meetings that we've had with the development community, there's been an element of the inclusionary housing. We have had brief presentations and engaged with the development community on that. Peabody Allison specific plan, which was formerly the Allison PDA specific plan. We'll continue to work with our consultant on that and looking at the different elements of the specific plan. East of Leadertown Road, that's also ongoing. We meet, seems like every other day with somebody on that project, whether it's the super consultants, our regular consultants, or the developers. And then inclusionary housing, we're hoping to have, right now we've tentatively scheduled a community outreach meeting for November 13th, which will be via Zoom from 6 to 7:30. And we're meeting regularly on that as well.
I will add that there will be community outreach early in the process for both the East of Leadertown specific plan and the Peabody Allison. We're not going to do it at Christmas, but we're trying to find times kind of in that special time in November or early December to get those out there to the community. And those dates will be shared with the Planning Commission. Process improvements. It's been a while now, but the city has hired Baker Tilly to assist us in looking at and improving our development review process to try to make it more efficient, more predictable, better customer service, et cetera. So we're in the phase where our consultant has interviewed a set of our most regular customers in a variety of areas, and they're interviewed all the staff that are like the director level staff and some of the key staff that work in the process, and then they've also have convened some process mapping activities, and there'll be eventually a process improvements workshop. So I just want to let you all know we are working on it. It is underway, and I should have some more updates on this as we get through kind of the early work phases. Again, the goal is to improve predictability, timelines, and also just coordination between departments to make us better at what we do. There's a document management project. I'm trying to remember what that is. I'm going to keep moving for a moment here. As I mentioned earlier, our December meeting is canceled because Merriman on Main is that evening. So you're all encouraged to be there. Just don't talk about commission business. Stay in groups of no greater than 3, please. But we will not have a planning commission meeting in December. Staffing updates, been on a little bit of a hiring spree. We have hired a person, his name is Demir Powell, recently from the city of Dallas, Texas. He is our new associate planner, he's kind of helping lead our advanced planning team. We've made an offer to an assistant planner to join that team. Another offer's in the work for another assistant planner. And also I have an assistant director candidate who is in pre-placement, been fingerprinted, et cetera. So I'm expecting that individual to join my team by the end of this year, certainly, hopefully sooner than that. We're still very understaffed in our building division, but we have some moves planned that should get our different sections filled. I won't get into the details. If there are any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take some.
Vice Chair Lightfoot.
I just want to comment that oftentimes your presentation is my favorite part of the evening.
Because it's short, Vice Chair Lightfoot?
I'm not going to comment.
Thank you.
It's at the end. Oh. Well, great. Well, thank you very much for that report. Now it's time for commissioner comments. This portion of the agenda is for commissioners to inform each other of items of potential interest to other commissioners, such as interagency meetings or offer announcements as appropriate. Going down the line, I will start with Commissioner Vargas.
Yeah, I want to thank staff for the presentations tonight. I did want to comment a little bit on Centennial, given the fact that my son plays soccer and baseball. Matter of fact, this Saturday he was there for soccer and then rolled into baseball in the same spot. And while I like the project, I think different phases, certainly there are some issues with parking. It's absolutely nuts there. But other than that, certainly some opportunity there for Centennial. One plug I will give, since we won't see each other until mid-November, is Dia de los Muertos, Saturday, November 2nd, downtown Vacaville. So be in attendance. That's all I got. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Lightfoot.
Thank you. I just want to comment. I think that tonight everybody up here did a fantastic job. I think having those thorough conversations about the hows and the whys and really diving in, I commend everybody tonight on the process that we went through, and I thank the public for all of their comment and input. I just want to say good job, everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Banta. Commissioner Beaumont.
Not enough, thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything wild and exciting in District 6, but I do want to say that with Halloween coming up, please be aware of dark costumes and it being nighttime and little ones darting across the street because they're all excited. So those are my comments. And we've reached the end of our meeting. As a reminder, our next meeting will be on Tuesday, November 5th. Thank you and good night, Vacaville.